we started picking up those Moultrie 8-8s because I don't know why. Because
we had to buy 2 separate units. They were just, I think they had 4G at that point. They were just a better.
They were affordable.
System.
They were decent. Like I can remember on so many occasions, I did punt a few of them. I got so pissed off because it's like, dude, it's. HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Deer Grow.
Man, we've been using Deer Grow products for a long time. The Plot Start and Plot Boost, more recently Plot Till. Now we've got 3 new liquid fertilizers that have been put in the mix that will cover everything we could want for a food plot program.
It's huge, man. The more food plotting we do, it's like, man, the liquids just make sense. Like whether it's herbicides or the Plot Start and Plot Boost, and now the fertilizers getting mixed in. It's like, man, I can combine all of those in certain cases and do less passes for more results.
I mean, it's all about efficiency. I mean, like you said, less passes. If you're out there treating your beans with glyphosate in the summertime, you can mix in this fertilizer, do that all at once. You have the boost in there to help some metabolism. It's all about efficiency when we're talking about food plots. And really the big difference on these liquid fertilizers is you're bypassing some of these soil limitations, pH limitations, the soil type. In a lot of cases, we talk about dry fertilizers only being available for 17% of what you put down in the first year. These liquid fertilizers straight into the plant are 90% available in the first year. Huge difference in what you're going to see in growth.
It's huge. And so right now you can use code HUNTR15 for 15% off any of the Deer Grow products on their website. And as always,
better food plots, bigger deer. And we're back.
Heyo.
Heyo. HUNTR Podcast, episode 243, as Nick is settling into Charleston, South Carolina. So if you see Nick in the South,
love you, Nick.
You're not hallucinating.
I miss you.
He is there.
Yeah, that's right.
He is.
If anybody knows what he looks like, he's the few sightings.
Yeah, they'll be like, "Wait, are you Nick?"
People see him get up and go to the bathroom every once in a while.
Is that Nick? Yeah, they just see a profile.
He said somebody grabbed him. He's like, "Are you Nick from HUNTR Podcast?" He's like, "I am."
He's like, "Yes, this is me.
That's me.
This is me." That's funny.
Well, hey, wherever you guys are listening to us from, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, we appreciate you guys tuning in. We drop these episodes every Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Eastern time. If you've written us on Instagram or Instagram DM or the website, those are the 2 that we check the most frequently. You know,
I think we're good.
Hit or miss on the response. You know, emails. Sorry, you know what I mean? I'm just saying.
Yeah. I think I'm pretty caught up caught up on the Instagram stuff.
It's tough. But we have some merch on the website too. A lot of you guys have bought that stuff, and we super appreciate that. That helps us out a lot, and also helps Nick. That's part of how he gets paid. Yep. We are going to work on some new stuff.
We are.
You know, to put out there for you guys this year. So it's fun to keep it fresh and look at that every couple of months. So, but other than that, here we go.
It is... We're recording this on March 13th. I can't do all the mathematics in my head, but I think it's March 25th, I believe.
There you go. I space out when you do those.
Yeah.
But hey.
It's still March. And so, yeah, we just got done doing a farm companion, and we're kind of in this mode of thinking about farm projects and things to do.
I thought I was wearing my shed season shirt there. I was going to match you.
Yeah, no.
I got the T-shirt.
Optimistically, I'm still wearing it, that I'll find a shed before the year's out.
Yeah, well, hey, it is the season.
It is the season.
That's right.
Yeah. But you are wearing a Hoyt shirt, of which we got all of our stuff in for our new bows, so we're going to get those set up at Ultimate Outdoors here in the next couple weeks.
Yeah. Well, I got 3 bows to drop off. I got your 9, my 9, and my 8. Truth, because I hunted most of last season with my 7, my RX-7.
Oh, yeah, because
I frayed
the lone wolf incident.
I frayed the string on my, well, it was a Jared incident. I just left it in the back of the Ranger, and it was rubbing against the lone wolf edge, and it
was on the yoke, right?
Almost snapped the string close to it.
Yeah. Well, I'm shooting the AX2 this year. I didn't get a 9. I did the aluminum AX2.
Oh, you did?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool.
Change up.
Yeah, I think you'll like that one.
Change up.
Still the 30, right?
Yeah. Yeah. She's
you dog.
She's nice.
I didn't know you did that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I threw a curveball on it. So I mean, we've
you
shot.
You a 70 or 80?
70.
Okay. I'll be honest with you. I shot my bow yesterday. It's been in the case for, truthfully, I don't know, a month or 2. I pulled it out yesterday. I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
A little toy.
She wants to go on you a little bit. Yep. Gotta retighten them up.
Yeah. No, I'm shooting the 70, but we've shot the RXs for. I don't know what was my. We shot the original Carbon Spiders. We've talked about that, and then I want to say the RX 4 3 or 4 was when we started.
Oh yeah, it has been that long.
We jumped in on the Hoyt bows at that
We went
point.
several years without a new one though. We went
from Carbon Spider to.
Oh well, that was a long time.
Well, but from there till like RX 3 or 4 was the first one we got. We've had one ever since.
Oh yeah, yeah for sure. But I don't remember if in between, because I had a 4, a 5. I don't know if I got a 6. I don't think I ever had a 6. I think I went from a 5 to a 7.
Yeah, maybe I did too. What did we sell?
I've sold 2 of them at least.
We sold our 5s, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we have our 7s still.
Yeah. We used to say write us an ass, but don't. I think. Yeah, I mean, it's they're just, you know, what I mean, we've promised them to friends and stuff here.
Yeah,
I have anyways. And truthfully, not to be greedy with them, but like I really have appreciated. And last year was a testament to that, having a backup bow. Yeah, it's important.
I'll probably sell my 7. I would assume because I have an 8, a 9, and an AX2 now. So, I've got a blacked out bone collector RX7 that we'll see. A couple weeks. Don't write me yet, but
don't write us.
Don't write us yet. Yeah.
They'll be like, okay, I'm not writing you, but just in case.
But if you are, I am interested.
He and her.
Yeah.
Do we have that aluminum 9 as well? Somewhere. We'll do something with that at some point.
Yeah. Or the other AX2.
Yeah.
Yeah, the gray one. Yeah, it's in
the back room.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So we have that. Maybe we'll do a giveaway or something with that.
Okay.
That'd be cool. Anyways, so it's March. We've been talking about land projects and stuff. So we pulled in a guest. So we got Jake Hofer today. I know Jake from Old School Exodus channel and podcast, the land podcast. Like people have probably seen Jake in a bunch of different places.
Definitely. I mean, we've been wanting to, I think, have Jake on for a long time. Whitetail Cribs is like where a lot of people have seen Jake.
Yep.
And some of the Exodus podcast stuff that you mentioned.
Land podcast.
He's done a lot here in the podcast space, frankly, and just
maybe just like who would have just aired the last week with Mark Kenyon. Jake might be a bit of an OG in the podcast world.
Yeah, we'll ask him when
we'll have to get his take on the everybody's got a podcast nowadays.
Yeah, boy, it is something.
It is.
So I don't know anybody that doesn't have one. You know what I mean?
There's a lot of people with a podcast nowadays. Yeah. So anyways, we brought Jake on. We figure, one, I know some people have even reached out to us about like, hey, I know you guys know Jake, like what's going on with the Exodus thing.
Yeah.
So we'll address what we can address there. I mean,
well, and where were we driving to when we were listening to his
ATA show?
The ATA show. We were like locked in on.
Listening to the pod with him of like, here's kind of the what happened of everything.
Yeah.
So that was a few months ago. So any new developments that he can share with us, and then also like kind of what's on his plate here moving forward, right? Because I mean that's a big one of kind of the what's next, after something like that happens. And, Jake's also selling real estate in Illinois, so we always like to kind of see what's going on with that. And I know he's super involved on the habitat side of things. So, yeah.
Cool.
Let's bring him in. We are good, dude. We got you?
Yes, sir.
Perfect, man. Well, we appreciate you joining us this morning. Sorry if I had for the little time tweak there. I told Jared I got capped here in an afternoon meeting, so I was like, well, we'll see if Jake can jump on a little bit earlier.
He's always jerking me around, Jake. He's like, okay, we can start at 9. I got a hard stop at 9:45. I'm like,
efficiency.
Right. So, block that schedule in.
I know, man. Well, anyways, we appreciate you jumping on, and yeah, man, it's we were kind of joking about it, yesterday on the phone. It was like, long time coming at this point to organize everything.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. It's been cool to see your guys' ascent very quickly in the world of podcasts. It's funny because I would have a lot of people, you listen to HUNTR Podcast? So yeah, I listen every now and then. And that has exponentially grew over the last couple of years. So kudos to what you guys have done. That's
funny, man. We always kind of tell people in a lot of cases that, from our side at least, it's weird to kind of have those interactions, I guess. When we kind of hear people saying like, hey, I've watched you guys, every one of your podcasts or whatever it is.
Well, it's been, believe it or not, we're in our 5th year, so it's like, it has flown by, but it's also like, I mean, I'm not patting ourselves, but it's taken some effort. You know what I mean? It's like, of not missing a week for, we're in our 5th year here now.
Took a long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first 2 years of podcast, when you start something new, it feels like sometimes you might be talking to a void, but you
Yeah.
continue to do it in the compounds, and you get a good episode that gets a lot of new listeners, and just consistency. That's the main thing.
Yeah. Well, I think that's better, Jared. Thank you. I think that, when you get into that kind of side of things, because we've had, we kind of joked about it, like, hey, everybody's got a podcast. We've had a lot of people, who are starting podcasts or early in it, just kind of ask like, hey, what do you do? And, not in a like blow it off situation, but it's like, you just have to be consistent. Like if I look at even people, I won't mention any names, but people that I'm like, wow, that's a big name who's starting a podcast. The moment they become inconsistent, it fails, like almost instantaneously.
Well, it's not. It is. That's probably like 80% of the ingredient, but you also have to have something to say. You know what I mean?
Sure.
You've got to have a perspective, because there are people that will be consistent that,
Yeah, they don't have anything to say.
Yeah, you can be consistent for 10 years, and if you got nothing to say, then
Yeah.
then there's that. But
Well, dude, we kind of joked about you being an OG of it. How long ago was the first podcast that you did?
2018 is when we started a podcast. So at Exodus, we were consumer direct.
Yep.
And we had to figure out a way to build our own following, build our own customer base, educate customers. And at this time, you joke about how many podcasts there are. Back in 2018, we felt like there was a lot. And now there's infinitely more.
Infinitely more.
So 2018 and the Exodus podcast had 360 some episodes, and Land Podcast has I think I just posted almost the 160th episode of that.
Wow.
So done a lot here over the last however many years that is.
Well, so you're coming out on, I think it's Tuesday the 25th. Last Tuesday we had Kenyon on, and I think if I remember correctly, I think his Wired to Hunt stuff was also around 2018 or so.
I think he was a little bit sooner, because vividly remember he had an episode with Mark Drury, and I think I was in college. This might have been 2015 or 16.
Okay.
And I remember actually listening to that
like
at my desk.
2012 or so.
Oh, maybe it was 12.
Yeah.
Maybe it was 18 was the stuff starting relationships with Meat Eater or something like that. Yeah.
That sounds about right. But I just remember jotting down notes of Mark Drury dropping fire.
Yeah.
Because at the time, we've all been spoiled of really good information now. And at that time, it felt like a lot of that was really bottled up.
Mm-hmm.
And podcasts were the best vessel to learn some of those things. So, I have a ton of respect for Mark. And I used to listen to his podcast, still do.
Hard to believe, man. I mean, just thinking about because 2018 wasn't that long ago, 7 years ago at this point. But just to think of how much evolution has happened there in the media side. Because at 2018, you're for sure at the tail end of what I would say is the TV side of things. 2018, it was already coming down the hill at that point. I would say from an online standpoint, you were probably pretty much in its heyday, in that 2015 to 20 maybe time frame. And podcasts were really just on the up and up through that 18. And it's probably right after COVID that really started to crank up because of the remoteness and the acceptance of a remote conversation and things like that.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's interesting. And even people that in 2018, there was a lot of people, I've never even heard of a podcast. What's that?
Sure.
And now it's this synonymous of, oh yeah, it's like a radio show, or, whatever the case may be. It's way more widely accepted across the board of everyone, no matter what you're interested in. There's a podcast about it.
Yeah.
Well, Jay, can you give us some background? I mean, just tell us about, were you originally involved with Exodus, or were you an owner of that company? Is that where all the podcasts kind of started out of? I mean, just give us kind of an origin story of Jake real quick, if you would.
Yeah, I'll give you the really condensed version, or as condensed as that what will make sense.
Oh, whatever.
Went to, this is actually kind of a funny story. I had a full tuition scholarship to a school called Ashford University in Clinton, Iowa. And they closed from my sophomore year to my junior year. I was in Canada fishing on vacation, and my roommate called me. He's like, "Hey, dude, our school's closing." I'm like, what?
What?
I didn't even know that was a thing. It was a for-profit college, and they apparently gave too many scholarships away.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So at that rate, I was double majoring. And I transferred to Western Illinois University, and I wanted to be a game warden at one point, and then I quickly realized I enjoy business a lot more.
Yeah.
So I was double majoring for free at my old school, and then at my new school, I had to start paying for my own tuition. And I was like, which one can I graduate faster with? And so it was criminal justice. So I have a major in criminal justice and a minor in marketing. And throughout that period, I wrote for Wide Open Spaces. I wrote 600 plus articles for that platform.
Wide
which is,
Open Spaces. Remember them?
Yeah, a funny part of the world of internet at that time. Wrote a bunch of stuff for them. And then I was
Are they still around, Jake? Wide Open Space?
I think so, but the death of Facebook pushing articles off-site is probably their demise.
I would say so.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so that was, throughout that process of writing for Wide Open Spaces, I was doing a lot of different like freelance marketing stuff in college. And to graduate, I had to get an internship. And I went to the ATA show and I did some work with Exodus right when they started. I did an interview with them right when they were launching, before they ever shipped a camera. I had a call with the 3 founders at the time and released an article. And then at ATA, I had to get an internship to graduate. And I said, I'm not sure if you guys are in a position to do anything, but I would love to intern for you guys. And I started as an intern. And basically, if I make an impact in the business, I hope there's more opportunity. And so a couple months into the internship, was offered a full-time position. And I had a really good job offer out of Austin, Texas, out of college too. And it was like the classic follow your passion or take the job with more money. And I ultimately took the job that, I thought I would enjoy more, which I thoroughly enjoyed my time at Exodus, and ended up working into ownership at Exodus as there was some reshuffling of the founders. And so Chad was there was 3 original founders, Chad, and then Matt Klein, and then Chad's brother, Steve. And then so Steve eventually, Matt left first, and then Steve left. And then it was just me and Chad for a while in terms of just operators and owners, active participants of the business. I mean, it was a really, really lean ship from 2018 to 2019. And then we hired Cameron Durr, and he really blossomed to an excellent team member at Exodus. And I mean, and at that point, from 2015 to 17, Exodus was pretty tough. It was a brand new company, direct to consumer. Like now that's once again a common theme that everyone knows. When you said D2C prior, like, what is it? You're not stores? That's crazy. So we grew. I mean,
they're like, like Bass Pro? You're like, no.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. So from 2018 to really 2023, I mean, we were growing exponentially each year. And, I attribute a lot of that to the content and the team of just producing a lot of really good content and getting top of mind and ultimately having the 5-year no BS warranty. And what I have found to be really interesting was how much the trail camera space changed throughout my time. I mean, it went from, really cheap cameras and people would get upset. So then they would buy one of our cameras that were reliable. And then eventually like there's some players in the space that made really good, affordable cell cameras. And so we thought it could have possibly happened where people would get upset with more affordable cell cameras, go back to us. And I was like, no, they made really good cameras. And so those were, there's just a lot of things that happen within the world of e-com too, where the iOS update for Facebook, I'm sure you guys have experienced that changed a lot. And so we had to continue to get more creative. But dude, I've learned so much at Exodus, and I've really enjoyed my time and to be able to build a lot of the content and conversations. And it's just, it's weird looking backwards because I never really thought that things would end the way they did. But it's you find peace in that. But that's the really, really quick elevator of not so quick elevator of kind of how I got involved at Exodus and what we did there.
Yeah. At what point, Jake, did you? Was it your idea to start the podcast? I guess which one came first? Was that like out of the internship, or that was like, hey, if you're going to be a part of the team here, you got to contribute somehow? And you're like, all right, I'll figure it out.
No, I definitely contributed before the podcast. I did a lot of stuff.
Okay.
I did a lot of stuff. It was really just coming down to where podcasts were starting to get a little bit of traction. And the thought process internally was there was no one educating consumers how to utilize trail cameras. There wasn't any resource out there. And if you wanted to work the customer service phones for a day, you would realize really quickly that there is a big education gap. And so it started as a trail camera podcast, and then you can only talk about trail cameras for so long.
Right.
And then we kind of evolved into having different expert guests and more generalized whitetail podcasts. So I would say it probably came up on a whiteboard, and we collectively said we're going to do it, and we just started doing it. And that's kind of what we would always do of okay, well, we can talk about it, and then we just need to execute it. Because if it stays on the whiteboard too long, that's not good.
Yeah. And that was the Exodus podcast is what that was.
It started as Trail Cam Radio.
Very nice.
Okay.
Very nice.
Yeah. And then it switched over to the Exodus podcast probably in 2020 or something like that for more mass market appeal and more branding.
Yeah, which makes sense. I mean, as you're tying it more into the actual business and industry side of things. And funny enough, you mentioned Cameron. So Jared and I are actually working with Cameron at Hawk Optics now.
Yeah. That's cool.
So that's a cool relationship, and we've got to know him here over the last couple months of just starting to get involved with those guys, and just got some glass in the mail about a week ago. So we're excited to.
I used mine already. Yeah,
Did you?
Yeah, I found some sheds with them.
Very nice.
They're sick.
Yeah. So it's fun, small world, right? As kind of how that all that works. But, and I guess, Jake, like I'd encourage people to go and listen to the one that you guys did, but, maybe give us a Cliff Notes version of the what happened with Exodus here. Like, I mean, obviously, like you guys said, from 18 to 23, like you're on this exponential growth, like things are, you're still a small company, but like you're growing, you're doing what you need to do. You're providing great customer service. Your content is on point. Your brand's on point. Like, I think when we all kind of heard about it as just even customers, it was like, what the hell happened?
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. Because obviously working in the trenches, you had that feeling it was coming down the pipeline for quite some time. But ultimately, there's a handful of things that really, like we're a small business, so usually we would handle one issue at a time.
Mm-hmm.
We had like 3 or 4 issues all at once. And so, as I mentioned, how the trail camera industry and space changed over time, we partnered with another company prior to handle the data. And so like you would buy an Exodus camera and you would use another app. We didn't have the money to build our own app at the time, so it was a good solution.
Yep, makes sense.
And they did a good job. They had a good app. And then it got to the point where like if we have to get the recurring revenue, or we will go out of business. So it was like either
not to interrupt you there, Jake, but per your conversation earlier of like, hey, all these people started to make good quality, cheap cell cameras. It was because their business model changed to the recurring revenue of the subscription base.
Yes, and we did respond to that sooner because we launched the Rival, which was a more affordable camera, cell camera, and it's a really good camera. I think it's an excellent one. I still have them obviously, but regardless, so we had to get to the point where we had the recurring revenue of our business, and so I really wanted to raise capital and separate it as a different LLC, but we actually cash flowed that project, and it was really, really, really expensive.
Yeah, so I
bet that depletes cash resources, and then it is a challenge dealing with overseas manufacturing. Like, there's people. I went and spoke to the high school, and like, would you ever do another product company again? I was like, not if there's overseas manufacturing.
Yeah.
It's just brutal. And so we had to update the firmware of our cameras. And it should have been a really, really easy project. They said they could do it, overpromised on that. The manufacturer did. And so that's problem number 1, spent too much cash on developing the app. Problem number 2, the manufacturer would not update the firmware to operate correctly on the app. So there were some issues where we test it on, 100 cameras and we have no issues. Well, when you deploy it to thousands of cameras, it really shows what potential issues there are.
Right.
And so it should have been an easy fix. And man, we went round and round. I would send an email and overseas, their morning starts at 7 p.m. I would send an email every single evening at 7 p.m. of like, hey, what are we going to get done today? And then they would progressively get a little bit more rude of like, all right, it's been 2 weeks. What are we going to get done?
Yeah.
And then the other thing too is like when
per my last
with the smaller, what's that?
Per my last email.
Oh yeah, something like that. And so that's one of the other issues. And then so as a younger company getting into that space, you buy bulk data from a different provider.
Gotcha.
And there's minimum spend.
Yeah.
And so we had forecasted, okay, we have X amount of cameras in circulation. If X amount switch over to the Exodus app, because they could have stayed where they're at. Okay, this is how many cameras we think we'll have connected. This is about how many pictures we think we'll have. This is how much data we think we'll use. And when cameras aren't sending pictures because the firmware is wrong, we still have a minimum spend. And so then we were just burning all this cash, and they would not want to renegotiate with us at all. And I, there was a point where like, we're going to go out of business. And then it was just like, that went on for months. And I'm like, we're fighting exceptionally hard to try to renegotiate this deal so we can be a long-term partner with that provider. And there's like, yeah, we deal with this all the time. And, some of these projects win, some of them lose. It's like, well,
Damn.
I see why some of them lose, because you're not willing to really truly be a partner.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that we burnt a lot of cash with that. And so, you stock all those things up together. And ultimately, it's just you run out of cash. And when you run out of cash, you run out of air. And that's ultimately what happened, which was, I went through that pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're living that every single day and you're fighting exceptionally hard, dude, it was really stressful. It was very, very,
I
very
can't
stressful.
imagine, man. Well, because so much of it is just it's out of your control.
Right. Yeah, that's, we did everything we could within our power. And going through that, I was really fanatical. Everyone was really fanatical of like trying to find a way to make this work. And it's like, if this doesn't happen, at least I can say I did absolutely everything I could have there in that stretch. Obviously you can look backwards and say, oh, I wish we would have done that. I wish we would have done this. But obviously it's easy to do that. And, you try to make the best decision you can for the business in the future. But ultimately we made some wrong decisions, and it just shows how fragile businesses are. And also I have the utmost respect for any product company, no matter where it's made or no matter what it is, because dude, everyone, because I try to raise capital and just like very openly, like we are in a tough position. This is where we're at. Like I know the valuation is not going to be good, but let's try to figure something out. We just ran out of time. And I mean, I was on the phone. I looked at the minutes on my phone one day, like, you can see on the bill how much you talk. I was on the phone nonstop of trying to get something done, but it was just too far gone. And I don't blame any of those folks that we talked with that, this was a sinking knife, and anyone that's smart enough to recognize that. But it's just crazy, man. It was a heck of a time. And the biggest thing is, number one, obviously, when someone builds a company, they have the vision down the road of obviously a really successful business or a possible acquisition or some other really positive outcome. And so that's obviously a big motivator. And anyone that says otherwise is probably lying.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other side of that is, dude, we're letting so many customers down. I mean, that really bothered me. It's like we were letting customers down that spent their hard-earned money on our products. And all this was going on during deer season, like the worst possible time something like this could happen.
Always does.
And and it's just like that weighed really heavily on me, and still does to some degree. But thankfully, most people, when we announced that, were exceptionally positive of like, guys, no, you did everything you could. Appreciate everything you guys have done. And so I think that's a testament to the brand that we built and the customers that we attracted of just like good people,
quality.
good people.
Well, and also your guys' intentional transparency. I mean, the fact that you guys were out there talking about it, I don't know that there is another trail camera company who has that level of transparency,
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too is I talked to just about every trail camera manufacturer in the space and told them what we were going through with the overseas manufacturing, not updating the firmware. And they're like, oh yeah, that happened to us too. But thankfully we had enough resources to get through it.
I was going to say.
It was, synonymous across the entire board. And it's like, well, we don't have the resources to get through this.
Wow.
And dude, it's.
Well, I mean, nobody's making those things in the U.S., right?
Reconyx assembles them in the U.S.
Assembles. But I mean, it's still components and stuff coming from overseas.
100%. I mean, it's a consumer electronic. I mean, all consumer electronics. I don't want to say all as a sweeping statement, but I would assume 99%
the majority
of consumer electronics. Yeah. But a lot of firmware is done stateside, where they acquire a firmware team, or they build a team of firmware engineers. And we're probably just a little too late with AI. We probably could have put that.
I was going to say,
code in AI and fix this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even when we've talked, Jake, like you know, because kind of along the way, like, I know that you guys were still fighting to find a solution, like, because we had been talking since when this first kind of all broke, of like, well, hey, dude, like, you should come on the podcast and we should talk about this. And like, for a lot of it, not putting us off, obviously, but it was like, hey, we're still trying to make something happen here. But I mean, it sounds like, and again, I'm not a coder, right? But it seems like the firmware code wasn't that complicated, but because of who did it and who had control of it, that's what made it complicated.
So yeah, that brings up an interesting point. So the code was so we had to pay, so we paid for that firmware to be developed.
Right.
And then we had to pay upwards of $10,000s to fix the code that should have already been done correct the first time.
Of course.
And then they hold it hostage and say, I think it was $100,000 or $200,000. You can buy this source code and then redo it. Well, okay, so they wrote garbage code that only them, but the firmware team will understand. Yeah. So we would be starting from scratch regardless. And so then we reach out to firmware teams in the States, and I mean, it was hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yeah. After where we don't have that cash, and the business is in a really challenging place where we don't have inventory, like just a pile of problems. And I felt like obviously we could have done things differently as you sit and reflect on it. But in terms of in the moment, man, like we were getting the shaft on every possible, like from the supply chain perspective, from the data, from the cameras itself, from the firmware, like no one was really cooperating with any level of good faith. And, we worked with one manufacturer that entire time. We had one project manager the entire time. We worked with this dude for 9-10 years. Right. And he's just like, see ya.
Wow.
I think we might have been too annoying for him. It just shows you how fragile, like you think of Exodus as a brand, and then you have a project manager overseas that was more than we would care to admit, reliable for the level of success or failure that we have, which is a huge problem with the business. That's a huge problem. But it's where do you go when you have
what do you do differently?
The Hunter Podcast is brought to you by Hoyt.
What can we say, man? Another year back with Hoyt. We're both shooting RX8s. I'm shooting 70 pounds in the bourbon, which I love bourbon.
It's great.
And you're shooting 80 pounds in the straight black.
Blacked out as always, man. I got so I'm shooting the 500 grain Easton Arrow this year. And at 80 pounds, I'm flinging that thing at like 300 feet per second. I mean, it's deadly. Put a water buffalo in front of me and he's done.
I mean, we shot it earlier. You literally put an arrow through a brand new target, like never been shot before.
I know. So one other thing that Hoyt is doing this year is they're making all their own strings in-house. And so the quality is top notch, and it just really is something that is setting them apart from their competitors.
Well, what we always try to do when we go to our bow shop, Ultimate Outdoors, is we try to shoot other bows just to make sure that we are really giving everybody a fair chance. Sure. The reality is it's a no-brainer. Hoyt stands above all of them every single time.
Definitely. And so right now you can use code HUNTR, HUNTR, for 20% off any apparel on the Hoyt website. And as always,
get serious, get Hoyt. Yeah, man, that's crazy. And yeah, ultimately there isn't anything. Like, I mean, like even right now, most of these companies are facing new tariffs and things like that, and that's gonna change the way that they're doing business and things.
Where are these cameras coming from? Like, where are the manufacturers? Are they all in China?
Most of them, Asia, I would say. There's a district there that makes the majority of the cameras. Like our manufacturer made cameras for other suppliers in the space.
Right. Yeah. So in Asia,
the same place. Yeah. Yep. Which everyone says, why don't you make them in the United States? And I really hope that happens. And that was something that we were that was one of our hopes of like, okay,
sure,
if Exodus goes away for a period of time, can we relaunch with a USA made trail camera? And that was one of our we were really hoping to do that. But ultimately
can't,
I think there might be a day.
Well,
I hope
what I mean.
So.
Are there any? Yeah. Are there any manufacturing facilities in the United States that produce trail cameras?
Yeah, like I said, Reconyx is assembled in the U.S., so they do that. But buy how many Reconyx cameras do you guys have?
No.
Yeah, I think I've got.
Why is that?
One or two. They're super expensive.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. You can't want. It's the whole problem with Made in the USA. I mean, obviously we're all in support of it, but we can't want Made in the USA, but want to pay $120 for the trail camera as well.
That's the problem.
It doesn't equate. Can't do it.
And that's the thing, because then people say, well, I can buy 5 cameras for one USA made camera. And but that'll be the first guy to come up to your booth at a trade show and say, are these made in the US? And it's like, well, your clothes are all made overseas. Your phone is made in China.
Yeah.
Your glasses are made in China.
No offense to Reconyx either. Like it's a good camera. It is super expensive. Like I think their cell cameras at one point in time, their cell cameras were like $1,100 for a single cell camera. They're not that good. You know what I mean? The price isn't reflective of the quality.
I mean, I just don't think people...
It's reflective of the cost to build it.
I don't think people care enough either. I mean,
they don't. They say they do until the pricing comes up.
Yeah. And maybe I'm wrong on this, but like has there been a study to say like, is there actually a difference in what people will purchase if it's USA made or not?
There's gotta be consumer.
It's gotta be a small...
somewhere. Yeah.
A small percentage?
I don't know if there's anything.
Is it 10% of people will actually make that purchase?
If the pricing.
I think 90% of people say they would do it.
Yes.
And then you go put them in an aisle with two products right next to each other. One of them has a stamped and made in the USA thing, and it's 4 times more expensive.
They'll never
that
do
would
it.
be a fun study to see. Like,
Yeah.
okay, yep. Like a little hidden camera. You interview them as they go in the store. Hey, do you support buying USA made products? And then they go into the aisle, and 90% of them are probably 95% of the people.
Well, it's price, and it's not the.
It is price. I saw one just recently. I saw one just recently on American flags, and it was like, if you are selling American flags in the U.S., it should be made in America. Well, like 77% of them are not, and that's what people are buying because they're cheaper.
Well, it's interesting.
It's like if there's one product, like that would probably be the one product that they're willing to spend a little more on because it's made in the USA. It's your flag.
Well, it's interesting to consider like how you do or should feel about it as a consumer. I'm like, I don't know if I do care necessarily, like where it's made. Am I supposed to?
You do, because you don't want, especially in these kind of tariff wars we're in now and things like that, which have obviously just recently changed. Like, you don't.
Well, use trail cameras as the example. Let's walk
say
it through.
If trail cameras were the same price.
Say, okay, here's one that's made in America, and here's one that's made wherever in China,
and they're same quality,
same
price. You would want to buy the one that's made in the USA.
I would think so. I think just because I'm like,
why do you want to support China?
In my mind, that's going to American worker.
Exactly.
It's benefiting people here.
Yes.
So
that's the big one.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it won't ever happen because of the wages and just the way that things are set up.
Isn't it also like kind of out of our, the consumer's control? I mean, right? Like, isn't it like I don't know. It seems a little it seems like it's the customer's responsibility to just like, to get the best deal for them. You know what I mean? It just seems like kind of out of their control, in my opinion.
I mean, I think consumer behavior is everything. So if you just identify consumer behavior, that is, we can hypothesize whatever we think it should be, but just follow the money.
Yeah,
price.
They're going to buy the
day.
best, cheapest thing that they can. And I think that's what they should do.
Agree. Yeah. Well, and that's, not to go on the political aspect of things, but part of the whole tariff thing is to try to level up the playing field a little bit.
Yeah.
Right. To be able to compete and manufacture here in the States things that are manufactured.
Well, and that's what I'm kind of saying.
Elsewhere.
It's like if it's over the consumer's heads there, and if that means tariffs, and I don't know. I'm not an economist, but I'm like, okay, great.
The problem
Maybe
with
that's
that
what it
is like we're not going to get the best for the cheapest. It's just we raise the price of everything else from overseas.
So you are going to get effectively, right?
Effectively,
creates
but
that.
it's just the manufactured cheapest, basically, because we force the tariffs.
Interesting.
You see what I'm saying there?
Yeah, I don't know what the long term result of is projected to be. You know what I mean? Does that mean
it's going to cost more for things,
right,
to the consumers? But it will help with
in the
debt,
short term,
our national debt.
So what does that do long term? I know that's
for the national debt
question, but yeah.
Well, it just makes our value of $1 and stuff better.
So long term makes things more affordably and built here. In theory. All other variables ignored. I'm just asking for basic economics. Okay, cool.
Theory.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right, I'm with you.
Yeah. But can you ever do it with the because I assume that like Reconyx is bringing in, microchips and boards and stuff like that nobody's making those for cheap here in the States.
Well, and dude, freaking batteries. Like, the batteries come from China, right?
Yes.
Dude, I don't know what it is. It's got to be.
Or somewhere.
It's got to be. I had to have spent $2,500 to $5,000 on batteries last year. Had to have been.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there.
It's like, what is it? $198 per lithium AA battery right now? Energizer?
I don't know.
At least?
A lot.
Well, even the solar panel tariff, I remember when that happened at Exodus, our cost of goods on those were really low. And then there was a massive tariff on that. And our cost of goods went up, and then we didn't end up charging more. But the panels, it's like my counter to that be like, well, you should run more solar panels, right? But the solar panels just keep getting more expensive.
Yeah.
And
I'll be honest with you,
I do
Jake.
think they're best for break even, though.
I just don't think they just don't work as good as the lithium batteries for me. I just, you know what I mean? Some do, some don't. I don't know. I just haven't had consistent success enough with them.
Well, it's just to Jake's point about like test 100 and then produce 10,000 of them and see where the issues are. There's a lot of issues lying in, some of the solar panel packs and stuff that companies are selling. And yeah. I mean, I'm sure in theory it makes sense that they should work, and they have to be in the right environment. You know, putting them in the woods where it's shaded out and stuff. They're just
talking.
Yeah.
Full sun.
Full sun.
Full sun.
Well, I think it's even on the camera aspect. I mean, there's multiple brands. I mean, we've got every camera under the sun in our arsenal, and like some work fine that I don't touch for 2 years. Other ones I put out 2 days later, it's dead, and I'm like, what the hell?
I know.
You know?
Power consumption issues. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, just so you have our perspective, we do have a partnership with Stealth Cam. We've run those for a long time. We ran them before we ever had the partnership, and they have done really well for us. I mean, I think we chose to go that direction because they were really reliable SD card cameras that I was like, man, they just work great. Whatever those were, what were those, DSKs or?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, and they've continued to be good. But I think as there's been more and more accessories put into the market, like the solar panels and battery packs and things like that, I've just had, and there always is an element of user error to where I'm like, some things just don't seem like I'm like, that's just not up to par yet. You know what I mean? As far as like
the critique now has been that
it's not Stealth Cam. That's everybody. You know, Tacticam.
Yeah. Guys
are running those. The Reconics. It's across the board. So I'm not singling anybody.
Well, the critique we had for Stealth Cam now is it takes 16 AA batteries to run a damn cell camera, and I don't necessarily think I get double the battery life out of it.
No, I don't think so either.
So, and I mean that's just, but I think that's because of the enhancements to the other components for picture quality and flash and whatever that, you know, it just takes more energy to do it. So consumption, right? But like, yeah, I think like you said, Jake, I think you described it really well from your evolution of kind of like where you were to like where you guys got and how crazy that market changed. Because I feel like we're at a point now, and maybe have been for 2 or 3 years, where like, there is no real camera innovation happening. Like it just, you know what I mean? Like we've kind of, like obviously the change from SD cameras to cell cameras was like monumental. It's like, holy cow, huge. This is unbelievable. And tweaks and improvements.
I'll push back on that a little bit. I mean, here's some recent stuff is that now they have AT&T and Verizon together.
Okay.
I think that was a pretty nice.
Well, they have super SIMs now too, which will connect to any tower. With any carrier.
Okay.
I think that,
So there you go. So that's a big one.
I'm sure the, what's the next level of that? A satellite camera is coming.
Oh, no.
100%. It's got to be coming.
It would break the cell camera market.
Well, it'd be super expensive too.
How much would the monthly data fee be?
Yeah, exactly. They're expensive.
It'd probably be massive.
Well, I was going to say, because I think I have one of those Garmin travel thingies, whatever, that I can send text via satellite whenever I'm, and I think I pay $29 a month when that's active or something like that.
Yeah. Here's another one for you. I know a lot of companies there's like kind of it seems like there's an AI race to include recognition software. You know what I mean? Which to the consumer, it's just kind of negligible in the meantime. It's like you see it happening, but it's like nobody trusts it to be like, oh yeah, that's that.
Which people have been working on that for a long time, even before AI.
Oh yeah,
Google had an API where they could identify.
Yeah, their recognition side.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I mean, I got to believe at some point that's going to get there too. Probably, it's not unrealistic to think that AI will get to a point within the next 5 years that it really will be able to identify your bucks uniquely and catalog them like that.
Probably. Yeah, I would assume the technology would exist. Yeah, but something. Going back on your satellite one, and I don't know if it's active, but I know that T-Mobile and Starlink have a partnership.
Okay.
So, like, from what my understanding is, whether it's active or not, like, you'll be able to text via satellite using Starlink, essentially, you know, in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, shit, dude, on my Ohio farm, I don't even have service to text. That's why I have that damn Garmin unit.
Oh, dude,
you know?
matter of time. There will be nowhere on planet Earth you can't send a text from.
Yeah. So that's
get a trail camera
that would
picture
be
from, you know?
That would be the next kind of big up. But to Jake's, you know, question, like, what's that service plan look like, and you know, is that a substantial change to hardware as well? I don't know.
Yeah, I've never been an engineer, and nor would I ever claim to be one. But it would be very interesting to know what that monthly fee is, because that's something too. Just the consumer behavior of going to so many trade shows. It used to be, so like the very first, you know, some of the first years of the trade shows, what's the warranty? That was the common question you always get.
Which you guys made a entire like business kind of around that to a point.
The 5-year no BS warranty,
Yeah,
the damage coverage, which was how we, position ourselves in the marketplace. So it used to be the warranty and the trigger speed.
Yeah.
And then you go a couple years later, does this send pictures to your phone?
Yeah.
Okay. So then that would be for a couple years. And then after that, it was, I don't care how much the camera costs. What is your monthly data fee? What's the line fee? And just to see that consumer behavior change in a pretty short fashion is pretty fascinating. And I would say as of today, I didn't work any trade shows this year, but I would assume it was still probably what's the line fee?
I guarantee.
That's where consumers get sensitive to.
What? Say it again. What? It was probably
the line fee, like the data fee.
The
how
data
much does
fee.
it cost a month?
Yep.
Is it unlimited? Is it, because that's, people are most price sensitive with that, especially when guys are running 15, 20 cameras.
Yep.
I mean, I don't care
That's
how much
what it
cameras
is.
cost. Yeah, it's how much is it going to cost me a month?
Well, Jake, and I mean, you don't obviously have to give us the secret sauce on the Exodus side, but as we saw that significant change on what I would say is the hard goods side, right? Those camera prices, all that were in that $250, $299, $399 range, all of a sudden all fall into the $150-ish range, and that line item, that data fee on the recurring basis taking over. I mean, to me, it seemed like, how the heck are these guys making money on the hard goods sale? It has to be razor thin margins. But I assume some of these companies are just producing in such massive bulk that they are making margins.
I think the hard good margin is probably very low for a lot of those players. I think it's just even think back in the day where if you sign up for a 2-year contract with Verizon or AT&T, you got a free phone.
Yeah.
I will not be surprised if that happens with trail cameras at some point where hey, you get a free whatever camera if you sign up for 1 year of data or 2 years of data.
Yeah.
Because those were the margins. I mean, that's and that as us being consumer direct too, and then having that previous partnership with the app, our revenue was directly tied to the hard
goods side. Yeah.
And then the data revenue share wasn't anything to brag about. And so that's why we had to make that transition.
Yeah.
And dude, it just changed so fast. It feels like you guys mentioned we've been doing a podcast for 5 years. It felt like that happened overnight. I know it didn't. It probably happened over 2 years, but it was like you woke up one day, you're like, holy cow, what in the
how's
world?
This happening?
Dude, I can remember the very first cell camera that I ever put out. I remember Steve gave it to me. It was a covert black something.
Yep.
Probably a 3G.
Yeah, for sure was 3Gs.
And I remember he gave me a big antenna and this long wire to go with it.
Yeah, they were Trekker antennas.
Because he's like, wherever you're putting it, it's probably not going to get service, unless you're in town or whatever. And sure enough, it didn't. It was just in a field behind my,
Yeah.
I was on the bean field. And I remember going back and putting it out and climbing the tree and putting the satellite up as far as I could. And then I got 1 or 2 bars. Mm-hmm. And
it would text you pictures as a text message. There was no
SMS,
apps.
Yeah.
It was an SMS message.
And it was, but it was revolutionary too. At the same time, I was like, that's crazy, dude. I was I'm getting pictures
super compressed. You're grainy. You're I think that's antlers.
So
is that a point?
When would that have been, Jeremy? That was
2012 or 13.
Wow. So not even 10 years ago, or just over 10 years
ago.
10
years ago.
Yeah, 10, 12 years ago.
Yep. Yeah, because I think I started using them in 12 or 13.
The very first one.
Mm-hmm.
We had some in Kansas too, right?
Mm-hmm.
That were text from here.
Yep.
Yeah. That was before you even took me to Kansas.
Yep. Yeah, that was the first years I started hunting Kansas. It was 13. Yeah. So
unreal.
I think when you kind of look at that and you talk about the razor thin margins, some of those, we talked about Reconics already. I think Spartans probably struggled with that adjustment, because those guys are still charging not as much as they used to, but I think most of their cameras are still $299 to $399, somewhere in there. Is
that it? I do for a while, not that long ago. They were $750.
Yeah, I think they've gotten forced down, but still they're not competing with anyone in the Moultrie or Stealth or Tacticam market of that $150 range.
Because that's the price point now, right? It's $1 to $150 with
to $200.
What would you say is the going subscription rate? On average across the board, it's
probably $10 to $12.
10 to 12 for unlimited.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. That sounds right.
Yeah. I mean, there's something right around there, which is interesting too. So I had to buy some new cameras, right? So our servers were done; they were gone, and I'm still a deer hunter, right? So I went and bought a couple cameras, and I was like, oh man, I'm probably just gonna get unlimited, right? I get a lot of pictures, and we've done the research on that,
yeah,
and no one gets as many pictures as they think, myself included.
Sure.
And I went back and I was like, man, I was paying, $13 a month and I got like 400 pictures. I should have bought the
$6 one.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
batteries is the limiting thing there. You're like, I don't want to burn up my battery, so you reduce the number of pictures.
Well, yeah, and so I would say around that $12 mark is probably pretty fair. And there's economies of scale for those manufacturers too when they're buying directly from Verizon or buying directly from AT&T. There's massive economies of scale, and obviously we never got to that point. But
can you say what that is? Like, what does it cost the manufacturer for like an unlimited plan versus what the consumer's paying?
So for us, it wasn't. It was pretty much similar to like a business model, like 50% gross margin, roughly.
Yep.
So I think with their economies of scale might be a little bit better. I have no clue, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't. It wasn't exorbitant of like, oh, we're going to have 90% margin on this data.
But some of these might, for the volume of cameras and stuff, like they may be, it may cost them $2 a month and they're selling it for 12 or more,
Correct. Yeah. So it would be different for everyone. We worked with a company, like I said, that buys bulk data from Verizon, AT&T and repackages it to, consumer electronic providers like us. So they were making money on it, and obviously we were hoping to make money on it. So when you're larger, there's definitely efficiencies.
Are some of these larger ones working direct, do you think, or nobody?
Yeah, for sure.
They are.
Yeah, I would say. Yeah, I would. I don't want to speak on their behalf, but I would take a very safe bet that that would be the case.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, obviously, you cut out the middleman there, and you're for sure probably making better margins.
And that's why you can buy a really good cell camera for $120.
Exactly,
that is the reason.
Yeah. Wild, man. Yeah, I mean, thinking about kind of your side on the Exodus, and I remember the first time I saw like the 5-year warranty thing, and I was just like, I was kind of going through my head, and I'm like, I think at that time it would be, most of them were SD cameras, but it was like 3 to 4 or 5 years. Like that was a stretch. Like, I mean, I probably had some cameras that, not yours, but like I'm talking other manufacturers that I was like, boy, that's a ballsy statement, Like, I think that's why it stood out as like, nobody, I think, would have thought about a 5-year warranty at that point.
Yeah, the founders get the credit for that. And so we were the first person to ever have a 5-year warranty, and even till the day we closed, we were the only one that had theft and damage coverage too.
Right.
Which people are like, how many people abuse that? And honestly, very, very, very few. I mean, obviously there'd be a few bad apples along the way, but most people are really honest of like, hey, my camera got flooded. I'd like to replace it 50% off. And so that was something that was really unique. And then we were the first to have a 5-year warranty, and eventually Reconics decided to go up to a 5-year warranty. And I've become friends with the guy that worked there. And he's like, yeah, when we saw you guys had a 5-year warranty, we're like, yeah, we need to at least do that.
Yeah.
And so it was cool to see the competition rise to ships.
Yeah, you had to step up.
Consumers. Yeah, for all consumers.
Yeah, that's a huge piece of it. Yeah, because I mean, there was a point in time, like even when cameras were, I think some of the first, I probably had like one of those big ass Moultrie cameras back in the day. But besides that, I think I used a lot of Bushnells in like the 2007, 8, 9 time frame.
Bushnell had like the SD camera out of the gate. Remember that? Like the Bone Collector edition?
Yeah.
Not a trophy cam.
The trophy cams. Jam. Yeah, the trophy cams, right? So that's what I was using. And I mean, there were several of those that I used for 5, 6, 7 years, right? There was a point in time of a shift, and it wasn't just Bushnell, just from a camera generation standpoint, where I really felt like at the end of 2 or 3 years, they had some like self-destruct button that just like blew that camera up. Because
there's probably a component in there that had a certain lifespan.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we don't, it is what it is.
Well, and I mean, you think about it, and maybe this is kind of like we're talking about the Reconic side too, is like, you want to make a really good camera. At the same time, like, if we're talking about at that time prior to cell cameras, like the hard good turnover, like that getting the customer to come back to buy more was the key to business growth. And so, everybody's calculating internally there of like, all right, I need this camera to last 3 years, then break so that they come back and buy another model. Because at that time, unlike cell cameras now where we all have like 40 of them, like I had 5 maybe at that time. Like it was just as much time as I could go out and check them essentially. And so, if you made a camera that lasted 10 years, it's like you almost killed yourself as a business model, right? It's great that you made a super camera, but like who was coming back to buy it? Like now with the cell camera stuff, they don't have to worry about that because of the recurring line item fee.
100%. The one counter I would have to the not being able to resell to that other person I think we all know word of mouth marketing is
Sure.
the best or more the most detrimental form of marketing for a brand. But if I was the guy that ran I still have some original Exodus cameras that still work, the standard cameras.
Oh yeah.
And so if you said, I've had this camera for 7 years and it still works like the day I bought it.
Yeah.
You say that to a couple friends, they're probably going to go
That's
buy.
a good
So
testament to the
that would
new
be my
one.
only
Yeah,
counter
you're
to
right.
that, where it's like I buy it every 2 years and 2 years on the dot, it breaks right after a week after the warranty expires.
I
Like
know,
that's not a
man.
good form of word of mouth marketing.
It
So
isn't.
that was our approach.
Yeah. I think that was differing from probably most of the companies out there at that time.
Do you remember how pissed off I used to get at those Moultrie 888s?
Oh yeah.
We had those
With the separate modem and everything.
We had those for a while, but I think it was after the COVID or covert. We switched to we started picking up those Moultrie 888s because I don't know why. Because
we had to buy 2 separate units. They were just, I think they had 4G at that point. They were just a better.
They were affordable.
system.
They were decent. Like I can remember on so many occasions, I did punt a few of them. I got so pissed off because it's like, dude, it's. I felt at the time, and it's like, maybe I was taking my situation too seriously, but it's like. I felt like I needed to hold these companies accountable. So do you understand that like this is all I've thought about for the whole year, and I've come out to this one spot. I drove 12 hours to get here, type of thing, and for the thing to not work, it was just like it was the worst possible thing that could happen.
We drove out.
I kicked a few of them.
We drove out to Kansas, and like I don't know, it was probably 14 or 15 somewhere, probably 14, and went to set up. We had like 8 of them, like a whole box of these things to set up. And I remember getting a message that the system was going to be down for like 4 days. And I'm like,
yeah,
what am I supposed to do? Like I'm out here to put these cameras up and I can't even activate them.
Yeah.
The system was down.
It was life or death. I literally said to you, I said, like, I don't think these cell camera companies realize like the responsibility that they have to hunters. You know what I mean?
I'm sure you guys felt that pressure, right, Jake? Like, I mean,
Oh yeah.
It had to be intense to know that.
My cell phone number is very accessible on the internet, and people would definitely find me. And it's like Saturday at noon, like, hey, exactly like your type of situation. Like, hey, I drove X amount of hours and I want to set this up, and something's going on.
Yeah.
And I'm not very technical savvy too, so I was like, man, I'll try this, and hopefully that works. But I think of this quite often. It's like, okay, so for $120. You're buying a camera. You can put it wherever in the United States where there is a signal, and it's going to send pictures to your phone. Like as a consumer, I think we should all be pretty thankful that technology is there. It's so cheap, but people are so dependent on cameras that they feel that pain where it's like, I
agree.
They're missing something. It's like FOMO to the 10th degree. And even when like our cameras at Exodus like got decommissioned, and I still phantom check the app of like, oh, what's going on? And it's like, well, I don't know. I was like, I can't even imagine. I mean, I knew it was coming, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you're right. People are definitely really, 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 I would say probably too reliant.
They are.
No, I don't say probably. They definitely are too reliant on cell cameras, where their joy for the day is tied to their cell cameras.
Mm-hmm.
Their hunting is tied to their cell cameras. And I get it, because it's such instant information and an instant dopamine hit where it's like, oh, they're in the food plot tonight, or oh, that deer just hit the scrape.
Yeah.
And when you take that away from them, it's like, I don't know.
It is wild, man.
That they really, really want.
You see it a lot. Like, I mean, during the season, like in these Facebook groups and stuff, like if the app goes down for an hour, meltdown. And it's like,
well, I'm
crazy.
Like, I agree with you, Jake. But I also, I'm like, there's kind of the two arguments there where it's like, certainly you can be guilty of being too tied to it, too reliant on it. But also, they are extremely effective at killing deer. You know what I mean? I'm a testimony of that. I don't know what the number is, but like, dude, the last 6 deer that I killed were standing in front of cell cameras when I shot them, type of a thing. So like,
really?
Oh yeah. And dude, if people tell you, other than, I don't know if there is any more effective tool, frankly, other than like a rifle.
I would say cell cameras are definitely the biggest advancement for people to be more effective. I 100% agree with that. And then you pair it with other more efficient tools.
Yeah,
it compounds very quickly.
How do you beat it? It's like, that's real time information. That's what kills deer. You know what I mean? And so it's just like, I don't know. I guess that's all I'm saying there. It's like, and I don't think that's necessarily why. It's not like I was going to kill that deer tonight. is the frustration towards the cameras, but it's more the effort poured into and that being a part of the puzzle. And for it to be gone is like, yeah, it leaves you feeling.
But it is like an hour though. Like the app is down for an hour and it's a meltdown.
Oh yeah.
And it's like,
I know the feeling.
That's not going to make that big of a difference.
No, usually not.
I think if anything,
unless you drove 10 hours and hour is when you're putting them out and then you're like, I'm not going to be here in an hour.
Well, I think it's just like, it's part of it is this, right? It's like this phone doesn't lose service. Like, if I'm in service, it's working. Like there is not like a downtime necessary. So when people think about the relationship of I'm paying a service fee on this, I'm paying a service fee on a camera, and the service goes down, like why am I, like that shouldn't happen because I'm paying for it.
Except Apple's a multi-trillion-dollar market cap company.
Exactly.
And most of these
that's no excuse,
camera
Jake.
companies are not.
Yeah. Well, Jake, I mean, like the one thing that we've kind of addressed on here a bunch is like, and several states have done it, is the starting to ban cell cameras in certain situations and stuff.
Who has done that? What states?
A lot of the Western states. So like Arizona.
Eastern states too.
Yeah.
Who?
Delaware, I believe, is one.
Really?
I had a whole list one time. Yeah.
Kansas Public, obviously.
Yep.
Kansas Public is on there.
That's an all-out ban.
New
Can't
Hampshire,
use
possibly. New Hampshire might possibly be another one. I had a list at some point because we did some content when Kansas banned them on public land, and so I did some research. And so there were a couple more eastern states that I didn't anticipate. And then there wasn't really any chatter this year because last year Kentucky talked about doing it, and they didn't. But I didn't notice anything this year. I could have missed it, but it seemed like that caught some steam, and now has maybe cooled off.
I think they probably just know there's other low-hanging fruits, like they're addressing CWD in Kentucky right now, and obviously baiting in a lot of these states too. But yeah, I mean, I think it will continue to come up. It's just from a, we talk about the landowner rights aspect of things. From that side, that's the uphill battle for them. Like it's easy. I think I say easy. It's easier in like Idaho and Arizona where it's like huge ranches and like, if they're like, hey, listen, you can't use cameras, they're like, okay, whatever, like not a big deal. But when we're talking about these small parcel sizes and so many different small private landowners, I think that's a tough hurdle to get over.
Have they done that? Yeah. Have they banned it on private land anywhere?
The West states.
That's private land also?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think some of the eastern states.
Really?
I want to say Delaware has a full, I need to Google this right now. So
full ban. I know that Arizona does. I think that Idaho does now. Full ban.
Wow.
And that's all cameras. That's not just like cell cameras. It's all cameras.
Huh.
Delaware is just public land.
Delaware's public land, so that's like Kansas as well.
Because I don't.
Did you say New Hampshire, Jake? Did you think that?
Yeah, I think that might have been one. I'm going to Google it as well.
Because I don't know how you break that threshold into private land. I mean,
it's tough.
Yeah.
Because I mean, everybody's got a Ring camera.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I don't know how you tell somebody they can't.
Like literally, I get every one of my bucks in Ohio in my backyard on my Ring camera.
I know. Well, it's one of those issues. It's too tough to tease apart. It's like, how do you say, well, yeah, you can monitor your property, but you can't use it to, I guess that's what they say. Like
in Iowa.
It's probably more than Iowa. I would assume if you read the game regs in most states, they say you can't use cell cameras to kill, to harvest. They say you can't use electronics, quote unquote.
Well, like Pennsylvania is an all-inclusive list. So if it's not on the list, it's illegal. Cameras are not on the list currently, thus illegal, but they just don't enforce it.
That's right.
So New Hampshire, this is AI overview.
Okay,
Google,
yep,
so
we trust it. We trust it. Yeah, right. Sounds good.
In New Hampshire, while you can generally use game cameras on public lands, you can't use them to locate or take game animals on the same calendar day as the cameras use.
Oh, wow. So, I mean, that pretty much renders it useless, right? I mean, like...
That's so stupid still, though, because what does that mean? Like, if you get a picture of it, then... What if you're in the stand?
If your camera is
then you can't kill it?
No, if your camera's in use, you can't be out hunting that day, would be it.
I mean, that'd be your interpretation of it.
So it sounds like, right? It can't be in use. Read that again, Jake.
Okay, in New Hampshire, while you can generally use game cameras on public lands, you can't use them to locate or take a game animal on the same calendar day as the cameras use.
Yeah, so that doesn't mean it can't be running.
Well, that's the camera's use.
Yeah, but it wasn't used to harvest a deer if you didn't get a picture of it.
That's the interpretation. That's your interpretation.
That's how I would interpret it. Yeah, if you don't get a picture of it, it gives you no information. What is that doing for you to harvest an animal?
I think it's just the camera's use on the same calendar day. Yeah.
That's what I mean.
I'm not going to New Hampshire to hunt public land.
Yeah, I wouldn't put a camera out.
I'm not going to jail over that one.
Yeah.
I'd fight that one.
Yeah, because that's different than the definition that Iowa has, which is basically said it can't be
pull up Iowa's, Jake.
Can't be used in aiding of the harvest or something like that.
Pretty similar.
Well, no, that one's talking about just the camera use on the same calendar day.
Yeah. Yeah, so that it can't be used to harvest.
Yeah,
that's what that said.
New Hampshire didn't say that.
Mm-hmm. It did.
I don't know if I trust this AI overview. So we have in Iowa, it is unlawful to use cell cameras to hunt or pursue animals on public lands, and it is also illegal to leave trail cameras on public land overnight. You cannot use a cell camera to locate an animal and then hunt or pursue it. I don't think this is right. I think this might have been what they were talking about last year.
Yeah, I don't think they banned it on public land.
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I do think that you can't use it to pursue is part of the legal definition.
That's where they're having such a hard time making the law in the first place. If they are trying to, that's like
the whole point of using them.
Well, right.
That's
and it's like, even if I had the picture the day before, you could argue that that's more useful than having it the day of, even in some cases.
Yeah, if I'm in the wrong spot, versus like I'm patterning him.
Right.
That's the whole point.
Right. Stupid.
Yeah. Cell cameras have just opened such a can of worms.
They do, man.
For the world of hunting, and it's such a, there's people that are almost. I'm just thinking of the compound versus traditional archery days where like, if you use a compound, it's like almost guys want to go backwards. Like, I don't even use cameras anymore. I got sick of them.
Yeah.
And that seems to become more and more common every year.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think, Jake, of that whole kind of phenomenon? Where are you at in that cycle?
I mean, I've ran my share of cell cameras in my day. But I just think I shot 2 bucks here in Illinois this year, and I had no cell cameras working on that farm when I ended up shooting a deer I wanted to shoot. And then the other one, a cell camera did not really aid in my pursuit of that animal. I knew the deer was in the area.
How?
But there was only like 2 cameras. A cell camera.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
How about the first one? Had you had pictures of that deer beforehand?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Cell cameras in September. Yeah. And then also standard cameras too. But I remember I ran my first cell camera, I think it was 2017 or 18. And when I started running them, I'm like, these are way more effective. Because I would be the guy that would go check my standard cameras, every 2 or 3 weeks. And it's just crazy. You can have surveillance on your farm for an entire year and not step foot on it.
Yeah. I mean, dude, it's not like a trick question that I'm asking here. It's just like when was the last time somebody, that is actually invested in their hunting season, that's like actively, trying to target a certain class of animal or something, has like seen a deer for the first time, unless it's, a piece of public land, states away that they've never, or it's whatever.
Rarely.
Very rarely that everybody's like, I've never seen this deer before. If that happens, it's because, it's because you're not trying.
Yeah, or dumb luck. Yeah, it got pushed over from one farm to the next type of thing, like during gun season or something.
Yeah.
But very rare.
Very rare.
Yeah.
I've always wondered with some of those bans happening with some of these large players in the trail camera space, why none of them had made a coalition to try to protect their industry. Because I feel like that would be a threat for one of the behemoths of a cell camera manufacturer.
I agree.
And it's like, why haven't
they for sure have paid for lobbyists? But I would say that's more on an individual front than it is a coalition front.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm surprised that they didn't, when the Kansas one happened, obviously, I assume that they looked at the numbers or whatever. And no offense, but some of these camera companies have no idea who their actual consumer is. But if they look at it, they're probably like, well, most people hunt private land that own a trail camera, so we're not worried about the public aspect of it. I look at that as that's the foot in the door to kicking the door in. It's just like Kentucky. You can't bait from March 1st to July 31st in Kentucky. It used to be March 1st to May 31st. Then they extended it. Well, that's the door is opening wider to you can't bait in Kentucky. It's going to happen. People can say, well, not over mud. It's going to happen. And it started with 3 months, then it went to 6 months, and the next one will be the full year. Just that's the way it goes. And so when I look at these public bans that are happening, like Delaware and Kansas, and even some of the discussions that have happened in Iowa, it's coming. Like if it's on the radar, there will constantly be discussions happening around it.
Yeah, I think I found this to be really interesting. When Iowa was talking about that last year, we did some content, and I would read the comments, and it was about 50-50. 50% of people said no, that that's not fair. We should be able to keep using it. And the other 50% was like, man, I wish they just banned cell cameras.
I
and
know.
all ruined hunting. And I'm sure that same comment thread will probably be on this video too. And truthfully, I don't know where I sit. I see cell cameras definitely have created a situation where there's no secrets.
Yeah,
everyone knows whatever deer's in their backyard, and I really grapple with the fact of where, like, what, because there's people that are very pro hunting, more recruitment, and then there's people that say we need to shut up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I truly don't know what is best for the sport, and I hear both sides loud and clear. But if you had a magic wand and you could make everything perfect, I don't know what wish I would make.
I know, man.
Well, it's like, it's tough because you can't necessarily have both. That's the nature of a limited resource. Whether you're talking about the deer herd itself or land and access. Mm-hmm. It's like we would love to recruit as many people as possible. It's like, of course, wouldn't you want people to also love and enjoy the sport that you do, and for there to be an industry around it and for innovation to be happening? But also at the same time, it's like the quality of the resource, just because of the nature of it, it's being reduced. It's being overconsumed. It's like a gold mine. You know what I mean? That at some point we had all these tools now and it's been picked away at, and it's dwindling, and now only the people that can afford to go the furthest can do it. So unfortunately, just the nature of it is you can't really have both. You know what I mean? So we're obviously advocates of recruiting hunters. You know what I mean? I would hope that's part of what we do with the podcast, but also we need to put them somewhere. Severely holding accountable the people that are managing the resources, which is the states. So that there's a future to be had for it.
I mean, I think we would all be in agreement, though, that, and this isn't like a pro banning necessarily, but if cell cameras did not exist, there would be more access available than there is today.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, that's bait, no bait, doesn't matter. If they didn't, and it's just because the effectiveness and the efficiency of monitoring justifies the cost of owning land, leasing land, etc. And honestly, to the old saying of the cup overfloweth standpoint, right? Like we've talked about this before from state level, when they're like, we can't harvest enough does. It's because there are a lot of properties that are just locked up monitoring for big bucks that don't even get hunted the entire year.
Every property. I mean, dude, like, I don't know where you're at in Illinois, Jake, but I know for a fact there's parts of Illinois that, like, there's not a resident-owned piece of property over 5 acres for miles. It's all non-residents, monitoring with cell cameras and going in and shooting 1 or 2 bucks every year. Like these does. That's just what it is.
Yep.
And then these states complain about having an overpopulation of does, and it's like, yeah, dude, it's because you're allowing this technology that's the social dynamic. That's the reaction that occurs there. Yeah. So I guess I won't speak for, I know I will, because I think we're on the same page with it. We're at the point here where we're like, we love trail cameras. They're fun and they give you a lot of information. Like,
and if you're trying to manage, like, I think it's one of the best tools.
Huge tool. They're awesome. You know what I mean? They teach you a lot about deer. Like they're super cool, but we just talked about the downside of them. And I really do think that the negative at this point probably is outweighing the positive. So I would be on board with, like, hey, I would prefer for there to be a better resource on the landscape and for there to be better access for everybody. And if that means I have to give up the cool aspect of, and I'm not just, you could just say cell cameras, but, like, what does that mean? Does that mean, like, cameras that send pictures to your phone once a day, once a week, instantly? You know what I mean? What level are we okay with? You know what I mean? I think that's where the conversation is.
Well, that's what I was saying. Do you guys think that it needs to be a full camera ban like they have done in some of these public, or do you think that SD cameras are fine?
Well, the more you walk it back, the more impact it's going to have.
Sure.
So, and I don't know how far it has to go to, you know what I mean? You want that social impact.
Do you do a baby step, like I said about the Kentucky baiting, where instead of it cold turkey, do you say, hey, no cell cameras, you can use SD cameras? And then somehow you got to find a way to enforce that, which is the hardest part, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'd be such a challenge to enforce that.
I mean, Jake, you know more than we do. How many trail cameras are out there, do you think, right now?
I mean, millions and millions and millions.
Yeah.
I mean, it's millions and millions.
Yeah.
Probably maybe tens of millions if you count like the Chinese knockoff Amazon
everything.
non-cell cameras. I mean, I'd say 20 to 50 million, and that might even be short.
Exactly. So if that gets backed up, it's like, and then even think about the cell camera stuff. Like, let's say something like that happens and they say, hey, you can use it just not cellular active, right? Hell, man, I don't even know if half my cameras work when they're not sending pictures. Just like they're not built for that, right? Like there is no menu type of thing.
I'll take a guess at what I think would happen. I think if you said no more cell cameras, but just cameras.
Yep. That should relieve a lot of access issues. Not all of it.
I don't know if it will, truthfully. It's hard to put the cat back in the bag. Even if you said,
I was gonna say,
even if the property's been bought, it's changed hands. It's a lot has changed in 10 years. I think that the quality of the resource improves pretty drastically over the course of 2 to 3 years because I don't think people are as effective at killing the deer.
No, I don't think that they are too.
I think trail cameras are killing that many deer is what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Cell cameras.
Mm-hmm.
So if you say, okay, camera's good, cell cameras are out, people are not necessarily going to go and sell their property. Like,
I bet they will over time because they'll realize they don't have enough time.
How long is the question? Is it
3 to 5 years probably?
Is it?
I think so.
Because what happens if
I think what will
over
change,
that time the quality of the resource improves and they're like, this property is amazing.
What will change is leases will come back up within a year or two because
a handful of them probably.
People who are leasing multiple properties or outfitters who are leasing a lot of land, they won't be able to monitor all of it.
Right.
So it will come back fast. The sell thing, maybe not, but the lease thing will open back up quicker. And the market for that, the demand for that will force the price from $100 an acre back down.
It's not going to hurt it. That's for sure.
Mm-mm. No.
Do you guys see $100 an acre leases where you're at?
Starting to. Yeah, I mean,
100?
in Ohio. Yeah, I've seen 70 to 80s.
75, I think, is the highest I've seen.
Yeah, I've seen a couple in Illinois.
No, some big ones.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing a lot of I see a lot of 100 to 200 acre ones for that $70 to $80 range. I've seen some in Illinois for $100 an acre.
Yeah,
in the like Golden Triangle area, which are 200 to 400 acre farms.
Mm-hmm.
It's wild.
Cheaper to buy a farm.
I know, right? Yeah, I mean, if it's a 400 acre farm,
not for your Illinois taxes,
it's a 400 acre farm, and you're putting $40,000 into that thing in a year. Yeah, man, I'd take a look at.
It's expensive any way you look at it, Jake. It's, you know what I mean?
100%.
If you're buying, it's the interest rate, and just frankly the demand for them. And if you're leasing, it's just, dude,
no equity.
I've never seen. Well, there's that, but also the demand is so crazy. Like, I've never even come across one that I was like, oh, that's a good one I would get on.
Yeah,
it's just they're gone immediately. They're gone, and then there's 50 more comments about like, DM me. Yeah. I'm like, no, it was gone 3 days ago.
Yeah, it's gone, and it's gone. Yeah, I don't know, man. It is getting wild, and I think that unfortunately, like we got to figure out something there because that lack of access. I mean, in the last 2 years, I've seen more. I don't know. We put a clip out the other day. I've seen more comments about deer hunting being the rich man sport than I've ever seen. And
they're right. They're absolutely
right.
Is going that way.
And like historically, it's not. Historically, it's the poor man sport. It's like you just go out and besides squirrel hunting, like it was deer hunting. Like duck hunting was the rich man sport, right? Or upland pheasant hunting or whatever. Like those were the rich men sports. Like this is the everyday guy sport. And it's not like that. And I think, again, like if I look at where they're getting choked out of, they're getting choked out of properties that aren't actually getting hunted. They're being just monitored and managed or whatever you want to call it.
The culprit, in our opinion, Jake, and I'm curious to get your take on this, is technology. Just generally speaking, things that make, that make, how do you say, the world smaller? You know what I mean? So I would look at anything like mapping softwares. I would look at trail cameras. I mean, specifically, the higher the better technology of the cell camera. I would look at the weapons. You know what I mean? Specifically crossbows. The better they get, and the inclusion of those in archery seasons and stuff, and on and on. You could look at other things that are used in conjunction with that. Like in Ohio, we have baiting, compile all that technology on top of a, corn pile. And it's like, it's insane. All of those things together, we feel over, these 4 years of conversations we've been having here, that is what is causing, it's the number one culprit for loss of access and decline of the quality resource, not deer numbers, but, mature bucks, frankly.
Yeah, no, I would tend to agree with that theory. And it does seem like the world gets a little bit smaller every single year across the board. And I remember like talking about around the 2015 to 2018 timeframe, I feel like about every single buck on the face of the earth that got shot would get posted on Facebook or somewhere. And I feel that there are a lot of deer now that get shot, and everyone has just been so tight-lipped, which I understand in a lot of ways for those guys that, worked really hard and bought a big track, and they don't want people to know what's running around on that farm.
Yeah. Well, dude, we have to be careful too. You know what I mean? Because it's like at this point, it's almost like the strategy for killing deer is like almost irrelevant. It's not, you know what I mean? But it's kind of like, it's not as like interesting anymore because it's so doable. We have so much technology, that it's like
so much information too.
And information to where now it's just like, wow, how did you get access to that piece of property? Like that's the hard part, and so
it is the hard part. That's what's crazy.
We're not going to come on here and just like, it's not that we're not willing to share information with people, but it's just like, dude, I don't, we can't even get them for ourselves. How are we supposed to get, just give people that information? I don't know.
Well, I find it, so this is something I've noticed from doing a bunch of podcasts over the years, and even reverting back to when I listen to Mark Kenyon and Mark Drury on a podcast and I'm writing down notes. If that podcast happened today, 90% of people are like, oh yeah, I already know all this. But back then in 2015 or 16, it was like earth shattering. Like, oh, the barometric pressure dropping to this, overcast, like this wind speed. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
I know.
And now you go and
Drury's got an app for it. You just put your zip code in and it'll tell you that it's the good day for it.
Yeah. So I feel that from your point of like the information on how to kill deer, there's been so much good information that was bottled up and hard to get previously that now is just so accessible.
You talk to a lot of people, like, and I don't say this from a place of arrogance, but when was the last time somebody said something about deer hunting that you didn't know? You know what I'm saying? Like every once in a while you'll get a little nugget and it's like you can really dig on that, but it's so rare anymore. Like, especially the three of us are super privileged to get to have these conversations every day or every week. So certainly not everybody is in that position, but it's just, you find yourself getting to that point where you're just like, boy.
Well, I think some of the unanswered ones or the nuggets are the ones that are still debatable. We talked about the switchgrass thing earlier. That's very geocentric in terms of where it works, where it doesn't, what you need to do, when to kill does, how many to kill. Like their opinion, there is no factual thing.
There's certainly still debates to be had.
But from like I don't know, whatever. Clover's a great perennial food. Yeah, of course it is. Like here's for all the reasons we all know why.
Right.
It'll grow on my truck seat as well. Like. Yeah, it's been the thing I think that most people are struggling with, and people of like this is kind of all they know, probably have the most resistance to it, whether they're newer hunters or, I would even say people who aren't as dedicated, but because the information's just been put in their laps, they feel more vested than they probably should be vested. You see what I'm saying? They're like, they're not thinking about deer hunting besides like these couple weekends in the season, but because all this information's just been laid in their laps, like they're more vested. They're the ones that'll comment and say, you don't know what you're talking about. Like we just want to go kill deer for meat or whatever. The reason they're vested in having those conversations with podcasts or comments on social or wherever you see it is because all this information's been thrown in their lap. So they have the ability to put very little effort into finding and engaging with this information. It's just there. So now they're in a conversation that, frankly, they shouldn't be in because they didn't have to actually go out there and do kind of like what Jake was saying, like find these podcasts, find these nuggets, find this information. It's just
buy a book, get a North American whitetail subscription. Now it just pops up on their feed. It's just there.
Like, so they're like, they see something, they see us talking about manipulating the landscape for deer, and they're like, this isn't natural. And I'm like, who the hell What do you do, dude?
The best time of your life will be not knowing anything about the thing that you love. You know what I mean? I can remember
it's just being naive.
Yeah. Honestly, I remember it almost more vividly with trapping than I do with hunting. Hunting's been a longer progression and ultimately is more a part of my life now. But trapping was like my first love. I can remember getting the books, you know what I mean, buying the books. It never was as big of an industry as hunting was. So it's like you kind of had to seek the people out, and it was mainly old timers, and you would get and there was real technology or not technology, but there was real tactics, things that would work, strategy, and you'd be like, oh, I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna try this, and it was awesome.
It's where these guys learn from bow shops and stuff. I mean, I think the big thing is if anything, and it's not just to continue to pick on the trail camera side of things, is that most of us who kind of got into it before cameras were like the thing that vaulted you into information, heaven essentially, was you just had to be out there and boots on the ground. And there's a lot of us that use cameras that still do that, but we don't do it nearly as much. We're not nearly as aggressive, and we don't spend nearly as much time doing that because we don't have to with cameras.
You don't.
And so there's a whole generation, and I say it because of my kids, who are coming into they know deer scouting as putting up cameras and seeing what shows up on camera. That's who they are. That's just what
the best way to do it.
Yeah. And so when we go out and we're shed hunting and stuff, we'll go through it. They're like, oh, did you get anything on camera there? And I'm like, doesn't matter. We're still, but it doesn't even register to them because that's not it, And so until that gets put back in the bag somehow or some way, people are going to use technology. That's the argument we make all the time, and people will deny it to their grave, but they're wrong, is that whatever the boundary of technology legal is, people will take advantage of it.
Oh, yeah.
If they let us use thermal to go hunt deer at night and say it's legal, everybody right now that says nobody would do that would do it.
Oh, absolutely.
They would push the bar. They would be out there in their tree stand with a thermal. They would be killing deer. It's just that is the fact. So the more liberal and the more opportunity we push.
Not just that. Not just you're talking about pushing an illegal boundary, but just the fact that technology exists, the drones. It's I can throw my thing up and fly a 5-mile block here and find every 180-inch deer that's there. Maybe I can't do anything about it immediately, but information is what kills them.
Yeah, they're there
in the short term and over the long term.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't tell me right now that Jake, we talk about, I know Illinois has drone ban, so there are states that you can't do this. But there are also plenty of guys that I know that are buying land, and the first thing they do is throw up a thermal drone to see what deer are on it.
100%.
It's the first thing that they do. Right?
And if not that, a cell camera. Cell cameras.
Meanwhile, it used to be I walk around, I'm like, there's a rub. That's
that's
what
a pretty good sized track.
Yeah, that's a track. Here's a fresh
That's
scrape.
a great rub right there.
Yeah, that's what it is. Now it's that's not good enough.
That used to be my catch for a pretty decent rub.
Yeah, it's not good enough. So is it a cell cam? Is it a thermal drone, which is instantly surveying hundreds of acres and being does. Okay, there's a couple bucks here, but not much. And maybe you're just trying to see what could be on there, not oh, it's not there, I'm not buying it type of thing. But the fact that you can do that in a lot of states is absolutely mind-blowing. I've had people call me because they know I have a thermal drone that say, hey, I'm looking at a property in Kentucky. Would you mind coming down and flying it for me before I buy it? I'm like, no, dude, I'm not. First of all, I'm not that good as a drone pilot. Second of all, that kind of feels weird for me.
It's interesting. And I think those things will become more and more affordable and more
Absolutely
accessible.
Will.
And I know Illinois, for the recovery, there was a bill that was supposed to be addressed, and I've been following along it. And there was, I think, 125 yays and 120 nays and one indifferent. So I don't, and that was just the general public. And I'll be curious what happens there. I really will be. And I think
if a lobbyist gets in there to push it, it'll get done for sure.
Yeah. So we will see. Yeah, it's really fascinating. I think Jared, when he said the best thing is when you're completely naive to something you love, and that's why I've bought tree books. I've dove into the habitat things because it's that thirst for knowledge.
Yeah,
there's so much to learn, and that's the natural curiosity is a beautiful thing when you get to learn new things. I didn't know that. That's really cool. There's a lot of things I don't know about deer that I could be better at, but a completely blue sky of information to soak up is awesome.
HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Pure Wildlife Blends.
Yeah, buddy. We're doing a lot of food plots this year. It seems like the planning, the preparation, like the coordinating for getting everything, in the ground, it's like it just never ends.
Yeah, and I just got off an 18-hour bender where I'm on multiple farms getting everything ready. But this year, fortunately, we've got Pure Wildlife Blends, which is Jeff Sturgis. Who better to partner with for our food plot program than a guy who's got 30 years of experience, been on thousands of farms. I mean, the guy lives and breathes food plots.
Yeah, and so the blends themselves are all handpicked by Jeff, and it's like, man, we've had a lot of conversations with him over the years, and he's been pretty influential on how we set up farms and stuff. And frankly, the product, it's in the name, it's Pure Wildlife Blend. So a lot of these other seeds that you see that are blue and orange and all these things, it's because they're coated with lime and they're dyed, and it's marketing at the end of the day. So we have a lot of confidence in the seeds that Jeff has chose, and that's what we're going to be planting this year. And so right now, you can use code HUNTR10 for 10% off anything on the website.
So if you're looking for switch, clover, brassica, or Jeff's favorite, layer in the rye.
Layer in the rye.
Yep, check out purewildlifeblends.com. Yeah, well, I think also that's probably why a lot of us, now are looking at the habitat side as being kind of this new frontier where there is a pile of information, obviously, out there. But per what we were talking about earlier, I think a lot of it's opinionated. I think a lot of it's debate. A lot of it's location-based. So it's a new venture for us to walk through the woods and visualize what, this bedding area could look like if I did cuts or do a timber burn or plant a food plot or whatever it might be. And that isn't as black and white as putting up a cell camera or trail camera or a thermal drone and saying deer's here or not, right? It's black and white. He's either there or he's not there. That stuff has still some subjectiveness to it to where you can kind of use your creativity and experiment, really. Like we talked about earlier, it's like do some stuff, back up, see what happens. Like,
are you doing very much of that, Jake? Are you are, right?
Yeah. I'm pretty fanatical. Like that's where my natural curiosity is at now. I live on 40 acres. I've planted like 4,000 trees and shrubs and like the whole gambit, which there's things I've learned along the way that I wouldn't do again. And that's like such a pure moment where like, I made a mistake.
Yeah.
How do I fix it? And that's like the point of learning kind of the hard way too. I don't know. I enjoy that process.
Yeah. Oh, dude, it's like, it's one of the coolest things like that you can do or that you can like sink your teeth into is the land management aspect of it. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I know not everybody feels that way. I mean, some people just they really enjoy, whatever, if it's a public land or just like
the adventure side or rawness of it.
Well, there's private or public. Yeah, they're just like, I know a lot of old timers that weren't, not even old timers, like my uncle, guys in their 50s and 60s that just wasn't a thing for them. They were more like, I find the rub line, I hunt the rub line, I shoot, I shoot whatever comes out type of it. And that's what they were tied to. And so I don't know if it's definitely a positive thing, that guys are doing this. I don't know if it was driven out of like, hey, we kind of overcame like, we can do that now. We figured out how to kill them. Now we want to take it to the next level here. We want to figure out how to make this farm, better or whatever. But it's like, man, it opens a whole new world of like, it's really an unending cycle of like learning and improvements and mistakes, like you said there, to be able to not just kill deer or kill a big deer, but to get them to utilize a piece of property that you've set up from like a blank slate, essentially. It's like, I think it's nothing better.
Once you get into that side of things, I think you, at least for myself, where the first year I lived out here, I was like, oh, this is going to be the best absolute deer property, period. I don't care about any other wildlife or species, period. And then like the more you learn and the more different things, like, yeah, I think we're going to do a little pollinator patch here. Yeah, I think we're going to do this here to improve. Like, I hope there's a pheasant, which is indicator species, right? So you're improving the habitat, but for me, it's like you almost get a little less whitetail centric and more, maybe that's me. I get a little more crunchy, a little bit more granola of trying to do things that are really good for the habitat, which I feel that's something that someone probably doesn't experience until they have a piece of ground that they can do that with. And that's like, it's almost taboo for someone to buy ground, right? Like you're stealing opportunities from other people, but some of the landowners I've helped purchase a parcel, those guys are the best land stewards and conservationists, period. It's like, how do you argue that? Like, that's a good thing that they're improving that parcel for all forms of habitat and trying to be really responsible landowners.
Yeah. It's I mean, that is that's an interesting dynamic. Displacing resident. I mean, that definitely happens. I don't know what that, I mean, we're part of the problem in that sense. You know what I mean? It's like we're Pennsylvanians and we came out to Illinois and we bought a piece of property out there. We bought 150 acres. And there was frankly, there was a guy leasing it before from Michigan. Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. You know, and so I'm like, which is better? He wasn't necessarily a resident, you know, but
you guys had to leave your state to go to a better state to scratch the itch that you wanted to.
We did. And I'm always like, you know, hey, I'm going to, and not everybody is this way. I mean, I really do feel like we're going to take better care of a piece of property than anybody, I guess, would be the mindset. And maybe that's true or not true. You know, but we're certainly going to try. You know, I mean, we really do care about the land and the piece of property, and we're going to improve it to the best that we can. So I don't know, man. That's just, I think the nature of the beast is like access is going to change hands, and
well, I mean,
for better or worse, we're going to make sure we have some. You know, so
like we were talking the other day, that Missouri just put out that big survey to residents and some non-residents about restricting non-resident deer hunting, and whether it's going to be, you know, a draw system, or whether it'll be they just can't hunt on public, but they can hunt on private, or whether there's certain times of the year that they're not able to hunt. I don't know. You know, there's a bunch of options, I guess, that are going to go through in this survey. But the fact that they're considering it, wherein, you know, talking to even like Jason and stuff, it's like, well, these guys need to kill more deer, basically, is where they're at. But I do think that that's been a kind of a will of the people of the state who have said, like, hey, like, there's too many non-residents coming in here buying over-the-counter tags and out paying for leases, or you know, paying extraordinary amounts of money for land, whatever it is. You know, I think the hard part, and I get it as a resident, like, I think the hard part is looking at that from any side of a benefit of those people being there, right? To your point of, like, I'm sure if they came in and bought 1,000 acres, like Greg has whatever, 500-600 acres, something like that there. Mm-hmm. He's managing that thing to a T. Every property around him is benefiting from what he is doing on that place.
And value, and benefiting in value too.
Yeah, when those sell, the comp goes up for your place. Like that's it. So if you restrict that, or if you take that away, sure, maybe in the interim you're like, I've got more access, or, you know, less of these big deer, whatever it is, but those other factors that you're not thinking about will eventually catch up. You know, maybe that farm for 500 acres, he sells, but he sells it as 5 100s. And now you got 5 neighbors instead of 1. That will happen 100%.
Yeah. And I mean, that's, I run around in Iowa a decent amount, and something as I'm just, driving around and looking at Onyx, and it's like, man, these parcels are so much larger than even where I'm at in Illinois. Yep. I mean, it seems like everyone's got a 240 over there. Yeah. And here, like, a 240 is a big farm. I've sold a lot of farms, and about 200 acres is about as big as the farm I have a privilege to sell, which is amazing, right? But it's nothing to the magnitude of a Kansas or an Iowa.
Yep.
And it's just more fragmented. And then where there's more fragmentation, there's more neighbors, there's more pressure, there's less quality and less age class. And dude, it is just an unwinding ball of yarn that feels like it never ends.
Well, like our buddy Nick in Wisconsin, like, he's putting together this big piece of ground in kind of his backyard in Wisconsin. And it's like, it was funny. He was talking about his strategy, which is, yes, in some of the neighbor cases, he might have to pay more, but he's looking at it as the number of hunters he's buying out. Like, I forget what he said. He's bought out like 21 or so hunters.
Oh my gosh!
Right?
Wow.
In a 500-acre area, not like 10,000 acres. Like, in a 500-acre area, he's bought out like 20 hunters. And if you think about what that does to the herd, it's monumental.
Yeah. And what happens to those 21 hunters, though?
Yeah, where do they go now? This is the entire issue that we're talking about. It's like, okay, well, where do they go? You know, or if for some reason Nick got frustrated and he sold that as, you know, whatever, 1040s or something like that. Now all of a sudden, instead of 21 hunters, you got 40 hunters in there or whatever. Like,
at least, yeah.
It's just that dynamic pendulum swinging back and forth is the stuff that it's happening all the time. I don't think that the states are paying attention to it. And I think a lot of times, you know, we even all have blinders to it of like what's happening around us.
So what can be done? Because I think it's always easy to identify the issue, but it's really hard to come up with a solution. So it's like, okay, we all identify that because I think it was Jared, your point of, there's the hunter access side of things.
Yeah, you address
also
the problem. Yeah, you address the problem. You know what I mean? So if we say, okay, technology, generally speaking, is a big part of the problem, then we need to find ways to restrict it. Or if there's other things, like there's lower hanging fruit. You know what I mean? Like it's no secret that like in Ohio, I think baiting is a big part of the problem. I would say start with the lowest hanging fruit and just apply a restriction to it and see what it does.
Mm-hmm. That's the little bit of like pullback, just like the Kentucky baiting thing. It's like, okay, what can we pull back just a little bit? In Kansas, it started with cameras not on public land. That was the little bit of pullback. Now, I don't know what that changed. In fact, I think that could add an inverse effect, and it forced non-residents to lease land, private land, right? Because they're like, now I definitely need a piece of private land where I can run cameras and bait. Like, and so I don't know if they're looking at that or they're doing an analysis on that, but like that might have had an inverse effect on kind of what they were looking for there.
Did you guys watch the Kansas Department of Natural Resources that when they were voting on that? We did a podcast on it and we went through and broke down that video. It was a little disheartening to watch that because some of the basis of their reasoning for banning public land trail cameras, it had to do with fawning. They didn't want people running cameras during the spring and interfere with fawning. The other one was surveillance. Yeah. They didn't want people to have cameras on there. And then when Kentucky the following year talked about it, I felt like they handled it so much better. I watched that video, and I don't remember who it was or what his position was. He's like, we want to hear from the public.
Yeah.
And they didn't end up doing it. But the Kansas one, it was like very quick where no one really knew about it. And then they just, dropped the gavel and like, this is the law of the land here. But I just found the difference between those two states was really interesting to watch how their dialogue was and how they discussed it and how Kentucky felt like I felt like they were really trying to represent their constituents, where Kansas, it felt like the board had already decided and there was like 3 people that showed up to talk about it because no one knew about it.
Yeah.
So I found that to be really
Kansas did the same thing with the bait. Is like all of a sudden there was this news report out that like Kansas was banning baiting, and then like everybody and their brother came to the table at that point, and like part of it was like we had heard that the deal was done. Like it was like this was a formality. Next thing we know, they're like, oh, this was not really going to happen. It was just for public discussion. That some lobbyists got involved really quickly and snuffed that out, probably from the feed and attractant industry of the hunting side, for sure.
There's a lot of industry pressure too. I mean, not to shine a spotlight on them, but like T-Bone and the Bone Collector guys, they really got on and were like, that's all right, to bait out there and stuff. And a bunch of people rallied around them too. And I'm sure that had something to do
with pressure on it
with, keeping it.
But that was their
for better or worse. I mean, we've never, Kansas is, half a country, let them do what they want to do. It's like, I think we have a vested stake in Ohio enough to be able to have a voice there, but
to Jake's point, it's larger parcel sizes. It's more vast.
Right. I don't think it has as big of an impact out there necessarily.
No, I mean, I don't think besides like in some of the suburban areas and urban areas, like I don't think people are just out there dropping corn piles on 2 acres and killing a bunch of deer like they are in Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
They're just
probably, I don't know, maybe in eastern Kansas I could see that.
Yeah, like in Kansas City area, maybe around Topeka, Wichita, like maybe some of those spots. But other than that, probably
it's a desolate state. Most of it's desolate.
Yeah. It's just big ranch country,
Yeah.
It's challenging, because I think a lot of people enjoy, their freedoms, right? And their ability to, hunt the way they want to hunt and, whatever, walk that all the way through, but I do think that there's an element of like short-sightedness, to like, you might say that you want one thing, but without realizing that that's what that will mean for the resource and for your experience long term, you may be making the wrong decision. And so go ahead.
Yeah, I feel that as hunters, we all think in terms of seasons instead of decades.
Yeah,
and that even boils down to legislation too, where it's like, man, what food source am I going to plant this year to kill that buck next year, or whatever the case may be? Like our lives are built in seasons, not decades. And I feel like that might be a root of an issue for a lot of things, including the legislation. Like, what does that mean I'm going to draw a Kansas tag next year. What is that going to mean for me? What does it mean for 10 years from now, 20 years from now? And I'm not saying I have the foresight to think that way, but it's something that should be on people's radars. Like, what does 20 years from now look like? We know what 20 years ago looked like. What does 20 years from now look like? And how do we at least ensure it doesn't get worse?
Well, I mean, like the big one in Ohio here is like they just either proposed and or passed the increase of the the any sex tag for non-resident deer hunters in Ohio. And it's now $276. Basically, it's going to...
Do we think, Jeremy, that came from pressure from residents that's saying, hey, we have too much non-hunting pressure?
Okay. 100%.
Yeah. So that is a great example. You know what I mean? So they push for, hey...
Make it more expensive. It's over the counter. It's too cheap.
Whether they actually said that or that's just what the state decided was the best move there. That I don't know if that's actually happened yet.
I think it has.
Okay. So they said, hey, Ohio non-resident licenses are now more expensive. And so like...
About $100 more if you want to get just a deer permit for any sex.
So our interpretation of that, and I guess we'll see how this unfolds here, is that won't reduce the non-hunting pressure at all. I think it will just increase license revenues from non-hunters,
which was already 70% of the total.
75%. And so what it's actually going to do is give Ohio landowners essentially no voice. If they had very little say in the state regs already because they're not contributing to the license fees, they have now even less.
Yeah, it'll probably be like 80 to 85% of license fees will now be from non-residents, which means 15% are from residents who probably don't own land. Everybody who
their
owns
license
land,
is $20 is what it is.
Yeah, everybody that owns land doesn't need to buy one.
So if I'm a legislator in Ohio now looking at, okay, who wants what? And I'm like, okay.
Follow the dollars.
Follow the dollars. Yeah. I'm like, clearly the non-residents here, like we should maybe listen to what they're saying.
Yeah.
Holy cow. That's interesting. I never looked at it that way.
It also will affect like that's a state that needs to kill more does. They have a managed deer permit that is only valid to December.
They gotta fix something with that. Yeah. I gotta believe.
But right now, if you want to shoot a doe basically after the second gun season, so from December to early February, you're gonna have to spend $200 and some to do it versus $76, and nobody's doing that to kill a doe.
Do you think the earn a buck legislation would work for a lot of these different states that have overpopulation?
I think it's got a huge chance of doing it more than it ever has because of how many people just want to kill bucks.
Yeah. Which do you think that would I mean, there's all these different biologists that talk about the social pressure of overpopulation of deer and across the board. Do you think that would increase the quality of bucks?
Yes.
By doing that?
100%.
Yep. And I do think that, the immediate worry for everyone is like, well, I mean, I don't see a lot of bucks anyways. And like, if you make it earn a buck and these guys are killing two, Missouri's the best case in point that it was like, I think it was under 2% of deer hunters killed 2 bucks when it was legal to kill 3 of them. Like, you know what I mean? Like the success rate for killing multiple bucks is very, very low. And so the majority of people kill 1, very, very few kill 2. And so I think in these situations, like you may have some guys who are going to be like, I'm going to shoot the first buck I see. I'm going to kill 2 does. Then I'm going to shoot the next buck I see. Maybe. But I would say most people are probably, per what we talked about, guys who are looking to manage for better classes. Maybe they kill, a 5-year-old buck that they wouldn't have killed because it's like, I'm trying to kill this better quality deer, and I only have 1 tag. Well, now I can kill this 6-year-old 120-inch slob, kill 2 does, and still go after my booner or whatever it is. I think that then also from a social pressure standpoint probably allows some of those younger, better quality deer to thrive.
Mm-hmm.
It's challenging to apply any legislation as a broad stroke. Like there's some areas that don't need doe shot, and they probably shouldn't have earn a buck. But there's other areas that are over monitored and under hunted and that have a doe pop, and they probably would benefit from it. So,
but to our point earlier, I don't think that I would implement earn a buck with cell cameras and baiting in place. I think that
you got to start with the lowest hanging fruit.
I think that, but I'm also saying that because I think that would be an absolute mass destruction. I think that because of the efficiency of baiting and cell cameras in tandem with earn a buck, guys would decimate bucks.
Interesting.
I mean, think about how easy
decimate bucks.
Yeah, because you'll kill your buck on a corn pile.
Well, but you got to shoot a doe first.
Okay. Yeah. How hard is it to shoot a doe on a corn pile?
First day of season.
Okay.
Yeah. Thump, done.
Which good, right?
Okay. Yep. Good. Kill a buck. Kill another doe.
Wait. What?
Kill another buck. Right. It's earn a buck. I can keep going.
Oh.
I still feel like they have to cap the
yeah. I'm not saying a perpetual.
Well, how many you get then? 2?
No more. I'm just saying you have to shoot a doe before you shoot your buck.
Oh, they'll never do that. people quit.
Well, yeah, but that's what he's asking, and we're saying
no. I think in earn a
Right,
buck,
Jake?
in an earn a buck situation,
Jeremy's saying a perpetual.
No.
Maybe not perpetual, but like for every day you shoot, you could shoot another buck.
In a typical earn a buck situation, you will get a normal tag. It's just by shooting an additional antlerless deer earns you another buck tag. They'll never get rid of that first buck tag for you. Yeah, that won't happen.
Well, that's what you're asking. Would that help? And we're saying yeah.
It would, but they'll never do it. Half the hunting population would quit.
Is that a good thing?
That they would quit?
Yeah.
I think we would kill the same amount of deer, but you would have less constituents when shit hits the fan from like a non-hunting or anti-hunting situation. From a hunting and landscape,
which we've kind of ruled out already, right? We've already said like, hey, we're not even. There's no majority. Like,
no, I mean we're toast that if they want to come after us, anyways. Yeah.
How much of a threat do you think non-hunting really is with a lot of the state legislation and our sport? Because I feel like it's the boogeyman, but I really feel like we're just destroying ourselves from the inside.
We are. I mean,
we use that as an excuse.
I think the majority of the non-hunting, which is, bookend us. There's 10% anti, 10% hunters, 80% non-hunting in the middle. Those guys have zero opinion on anything hunting related. It doesn't even like really exist in their brains.
Can I say this? I think that the technology that we've mentioned, drones, cell cameras, corn piles, cross whatever the weapons are a way bigger potential negative than the fact that we have less people. You know what I mean? I think if the non-hunting community looks at the technology that's being used by hunters, they're going to say, that's not hunting.
Exactly.
Well,
we're not in favor of that.
I agree. Here's the problem, though, is without those tools, or if hunting would fall to a lower number, the states will immediately make it as easy as possible to kill as many deer as possible because that's their goal. Their goal is not a healthy age structure. It's not a...
How could it get any easier? What do you mean?
Thermals at night, bait piles everywhere. Like whatever it needs to kill deer, like that's the problem with the non-hunting public because crop damage and vehicle.
You have to kill enough deer,
Yep.
And also we want to be looked upon favorably.
So they won't
by not overutilizing.
They won't remove anything that makes it easier because of that. That is the
that's interesting because hunters use those tools not to kill more deer.
I know.
To kill the deer, like the buck that they're after. So that's the problem is like we are not using technology the way that the state is intending or hoping that we will.
It's just like if they say, hey, you could kill more does. Like here's a bunch of doe tags for free. Go kill them. You're not going to do it. Like it's
why not?
Because
why not
they can't fathom that side of it. They can't understand the earn a buck thing because 90% of the hunters 90% of the hunters will quit. Yeah, they'll just be like, well,
90%.
I just want to shoot a buck.
I don't think 90.
I don't think so either.
I'm just going through the Rolodex in my own phone of like guys that casually hunt. I think they'd shoot a doe. I would say
I think so too.
At least 50%.
I think some people would quit. I agree.
I think a lot of them would quit.
That would open up access.
I think it's a Mike Rex mindset.
No, I mean, selfishly, I'd love it. It'd be better for everybody that's left behind, right? More resources for me and you.
I mean, why not? Like, dude, if you're not willing to shoot a doe before you shoot a buck, like, and you're gonna quit because of that, like, what are we losing?
You're losing dollars from a license fee. You're losing numbers. The numbers thing is that maybe it is a false confidence. I don't know, but it's the one thing from the political aspect that they hang on to with deer life. Mm-hmm. Is like if we lose hunters,
I personally don't think we have too many hunters. I think, in fact, we have less than we have.
Well, no, I think we do have too many hunters for the amount of places to hunt right now. But that's because of the access landscape, everything we've already addressed. We don't have anywhere for them to go.
Well, I'll walk that out. I think we would. I don't think we have too many hunters. I think we have too many hunters that are way too effective at monitoring mass acreage.
Yeah,
they're occupying too much space.
Yeah, you just have less access.
I've said this before, Dick. I think we're living in a post crossbow inclusion world. Like, I think that literally was the thing that took people that hunted weekends here and there, and it put them into the archery season. Apply all the other technologies we've talked about, and now we occupy the entire country. I mean, there is nowhere to go.
The only way to really do it is to kind of look, and it's state by state, right? I mean, that's the hardest part here is like everything's fragmented.
I like the earn a buck.
Yeah. But if you looked at it, you need to look at it in a chronology, basically. And you say, because the people of Ohio will say, well, you guys suck because crossbows and corn pals have always been legal.
Right.
They're not wrong, right?
They're not wrong, no.
Technology has clearly advanced in crossbows from the 90s of the Excalibur recurve or whatever. And add to that pot is cell cameras, which has made it way more effective for things to be monitored at that point. So in the state of Ohio, if there was a chronology to say, well, how do we go back to where
everything
we were?
else, dude. Mapping softwares are huge ones that get overlooked. Drones, as of more recently, just life in general, people's economic ability to and willingness to go out to sell cell phones.
Well, but what I'm saying is,
all
like,
of that.
do you back up the history basically then and say, okay, no cameras, right? Because that's in Ohio at least. That's the newer addition. No cell cameras, and you leave baiting and crossbows. And what's that change? I don't know. Like, I have no idea. In a state like Michigan or Wisconsin or Pennsylvania, where crossbows have been more recent, I take those out, and I know that things change because I know how much time is spent in the woods by a crossbow hunter. I'm not saying that like anything against them. They used to spend 2 to 4 days in the woods during gun season. Now they spend 12 to 15 days during archery season, and it's nicer weather.
Yeah.
Just as,
so
we don't
have to beat that into the ground. That's just that's the world as we see it.
In terms of stepping it back, that's what I'm saying. Is that is the only way to like start to pull back a little bit to see what the effect is that happens. The problem with all this, and this is what happened with cell cameras, I think, in my opinion, the states are so slow to adapt and figure out how to react to this stuff that the moment we pull crossbows or pull cell cameras back, then everybody has a thermal drone and they're flying it around, and like there is no regulation there right now. Then you got to regulate that, and then what's the next thing?
I know, and I sympathize. Like it's tough to keep up with technology. You know, I get it.
But you have to have it from the state level down, or it just will not work.
Yeah, agree.
It's a great time to be a deer hunter. Let me tell you.
Honestly,
man. Well, and the shitty thing is, I don't feel guilty about it because we've all worked hard for it, but the three of us will have a place to deer hunt regardless. We just will.
We just will. I had a conversation with John Eberhart last year, and he was basically saying it's going to turn into a European model. And he's like, Jake, you're probably okay because you'll always have a place to go because you work hard and you've been able to get something. And like, whose fault is that? And I don't know.
Yeah, and it's not. I'm not saying it's their fault. It's just we prioritize. Like, this is my hobby. I don't have any other hobbies. Like, this is it. Like, so everything that I do outside of my family and work is for this enjoyment. So yeah, my family will have a place to hunt. I will have a place to hunt. Do I hate that for the people who don't? Absolutely. Like, it sucks. Like, it shouldn't be that way. I can't fix that myself. Like it has to be from a state level down to change that. And it's only getting worse. I mean, now we're talking about fences going up and stuff. Like, holy shit. Talk about that's privatization of things.
That's real, man. I mean, that's like 10 years ago, we talked about the cell cameras and we're like, oh, that'll never happen type of a thing. I think fences they're up. They're common. They're up and they're coming. I've catch myself thinking, because what can you do? I'm like, I can't financially, there's no financial situation where I expand or create the opportunity that I want. And I'm just like, I'm not saying that is the case necessarily, but I'm just talking it out. So it's like, what is someone to do? Do you know what I mean? If it's like, okay, well, that's not possible. It's not possible that I can go and buy a farm where these types of deer, where the experience that I want exists. If that's no longer out there, then what's left? Than to put a fence on that neighbor who's been shooting all the deer. Or, do you know what I'm saying? It's that quickly they start to go up.
Yeah, I think there'll be more and more every single year. I mean, because to your point, what's cheaper? Put up a fence and alleviate a neighbor that's not on the same page.
That's right.
Or B, go buy 200 more acres, and then guess what? You have new neighbors on the other side of your 200.
That's right.
And then you want to buy them, and it's like enough is never enough because of how fragile a whitetail buck is. Like,
that's it, man.
Everything is stacked against them, and so if a fence helps by 80%, and saves you 100%.
That's why we talk. Yeah, it's why we talk about like we talked about it when I was at NWTF with turkeys, and it's like, well, why isn't this like hardcore dynamic and like, you know, basically chess match? It's because like turkey, you know, a male turkey, a tom is a tom, a gobbler is a gobbler. Like it is what it is. It's just there's 3 of them in a field, and if they go to your neighbor's field and they kill one, like, okay, well, the other 2 will come back and I'll kill one of them. Like, but like if we're talking about a 4 or 5 or 6 or 7-year-old buck, like there's one of them. And likely only one of them in a very big area.
Well, it's just big. It's deer. I'd say it's big game, you know, but it's deer specifically. They're just the most sought after, you know. And
well, there's just the amount of hunters per one of those animals to harvest is like it's an astronomical skew.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what it comes down to. If you're like, how many turkey hunters are in the area versus the number of available adult birds to kill, like it's still skewed to the hunters probably, but not by much. If you talk about it in terms of a 4, 5, or 6 or 7-year-old buck to the number of hunters, that's a big skew.
Right.
Do you think it's 1 to 20, 1 to 15?
Well, I bet it's
sure
more
it depends on the area.
Yeah, it depends. Like, I mean, obviously we just talked about Nick's place. Like it was probably
ask your question more specifically.
In what do you mean? Like state specific?
Yeah. Or
I mean
deer's class specific? Like what do you mean?
Okay, yeah. Like a 5, how many 5-year-old bucks in a block? So we'll say a 640, and then how many hunters are trying to kill that 5-year-old buck?
I bet you
obviously state by state.
In a 640, yeah, let's even say like Illinois. I bet you probably have 3.
2 to 3, I'd say,
yep.
for a lot of neighborhoods.
Yep, and I bet in a 640, you probably have
10 or 15.
I bet it's more than that. I bet it's 20 or 25 guys.
I guess it can vary so much in different blocks.
Yeah, so you're probably 1 to 10. To
I mean,
1 to 15.
as much as 50, and some. You know,
yeah, I was gonna say if you're in Pennsylvania, number one, good luck finding one. But once you find a 5-year-old, right,
yeah.
it's probably 1 to 100.
I'm not gonna go to Michigan anytime soon. I tell.
Yeah,
there's people.
Well, that's it, man.
Like,
it just it is. You know, and the hard part is
they're just rare. They're
like,
rare.
Out of that 100, how many actually like that is their goal, right? Because that's the other question is like, they're, you know, maybe 60 of those guys will just kill whatever first legal buck they see, and then the next 20 of those guys are like, well, I want to hold out for like a good buck, like you know, in Pennsylvania that might be a 3-year-old, and then maybe there's 5 of those guys who are like, my goal is a 5-year-old buck. Mm-hmm. And it's like they're competing against the other 95 guys for that one resource. Mm-hmm. That's tough, man. When you start to break down the numbers in that, no wonder we're divided.
100%.
It's just the nature of it. I mean, it's what it is. Yeah, the odds are low, but I mean,
do you think, I often ask myself this question too, do you think there's more truly dedicated whitetail hunters now than there was 10 years ago? Or do those more dedicated hunters, you mentioned everyone has a podcast, are more of those dedicated hunters more vocal? So it seems like there's more?
More dedicated hunters than when?
Just 10 years ago, for example.
Yeah.
Is it increasing? More dedicated.
I think that the dedication level has decreased, but I think there's more people wanting the pinnacle, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? There's more of us that want that 5-year-old than there were 10 or 15 years ago, but cumulatively, there's less effort to get there than there was 10 or 15 years ago. Like those guys were hungry for it. They wanted it.
I think the effort is maybe shown in a different way. Like dedication back then was like the guy never leaves the woods. Like he just, you know,
sits
he's
it out.
Constantly scouting. And he's always walking and just spending time to where that's no longer really necessary. So the effort is put more into generating revenue and buying farms. You know what I mean?
Which is crazy, man.
True.
That is a terrible
way
to go on.
I would say I'm extremely dedicated.
Not to the hunt, but to get
to the hunt as much as is necessary. But
to acquire the opportunity.
That's right. But I realize that the greater challenge is to acquire the access. And so I put my effort into
that's scary.
That. Yeah, which sucks because I'd rather be spending time in the woods. You know?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great discussion point, Jake. And yeah, I think unfortunately that's kind of where, well, even like you go back 30 years ago, like if go back, so I'll be 40. So 28 years ago, I was a 12-year-old, so I had my first license in Pennsylvania. I mean, there were no cameras. Like, I mean, we spotlighted when it was legal, you know, to see.
Spotlighting.
Yeah. I mean, I sat on a soybean field at a telephone pole and glassed 2 and 3 year old bucks, but like it was, I found the sign, I sat the sign. Like, that's what you did.
I said earlier.
Yeah. Found the sign, you sat the sign. And like, that's
shoot the deer.
Yeah. And I mean, 90% of the deer I killed, I've never seen before, right? I never laid eyes on before. Those were the days that like literally you daydreamed of a giant buck coming over the hill and like it could have been possible.
You thought it was possible. Yeah.
Now it's like, I know he's not there.
Yeah.
Like, you know, so
the truth is hard sometimes.
Yeah. So when you look at that, the amount of time, like I've said this numerous, I do a lot of management stuff, but I spend way less time scouting and hunting than I ever have because it isn't really necessary. Like now, I mean, for 3 or 4 years in a row, I waited on the sidelines and then I'm like, okay, today's the day I went in, I killed my buck, I was done. Like I never did that. I just, from day one to whenever, like I just hunted my butt off to get it done.
It still can take time in the seat. And I mean, you still are going to learn stuff. I don't mean to belittle the hunt or the experience as much, but it's been outweighed by the challenge of gaining access.
I mean, that's it.
I think.
The challenge of locating, and this is the knowing is kind of the crippling effect here is like
that is the problem. As we know now.
Yeah. Well, and
you used to think like, oh, surprise buck, like you know.
Oh,
what I mean?
yeah.
And
yeah.
To where now, you know, I mean, there's been enough years of cell cameras. You just know, like, and it's not that there couldn't be an exception at some point in time, but it's like, are you going to base your season on the exception? Like, probably not.
I mean, I would say 80% of my season is just trying to find a buck I want to shoot.
Yeah, well, that's the hard part.
Every guy that kills really big deer and has a really impressive wall, they all say something to the effect of the hardest part's finding one.
That's it.
Can't kill them.
Find it. You have the skill sets to kill them.
Can't kill them if they're not there.
That's it.
Yep.
Yeah, and I mean, for most of us, we grew up hunting ghost. They were never there. We in our brains, we generated them, we imagined them, we visualized that they could be there,
or they might have been, you know, and we
on a rare case, yes.
Yeah.
But most of the time, they just weren't there. But we just kept hunting, and then we shot something that wasn't them probably, and we were happy because it was like, yeah, we didn't know that deer was there anyway.
Ignorance was bliss.
Ignorance was bliss, and that's where it's like, you know, I would be interested in. I guess there's just the West is just too. It's not apples to apples. Like, I would love for State to have the stones, the kahunas, to basically yank some of these things back, cameras, put the veil back over everything. Then do basically a social project of 2 to 3 years later. What do hunters think? Like, we can look at the data all day long of how many deer are we killing what do they think about their hunt experience? Mm-hmm. I bet it would, the first year or two, people, bitch. By 3, 4, 5, people would be back to ignorance is bliss, and they would love it.
I think so too.
They would love it. They'd spend more time in the woods. We'd be off screens. We'd be just out there in nature, be getting vitamin D from the sunlight, and they would just, ignorance is bliss. They'd be like, I found this big rub and a scrape. I sat on it. This buck came in, and I killed him, and it was awesome.
Do you think you can put that back in the bottle? Like,
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
Well,
I think Pandora's box has been open and it cannot close.
What if though, Jake? Because it's not a hypothetical. It's not like, oh, we knew they weren't there, but then we got rid of the thing that was telling us that, and now they might. It's that those are the things that were killing them potentially. Yeah. So maybe literally they could be there now. It's like the chances of that having been removed definitely increase. So I don't know that it's ignorance that you're reintroducing. There is that element of not knowing, but it's literally the odds of them being there is increasing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then listen, there'll be people, even if you make it a law, people will cheat, right? They do now.
Yeah,
like,
sure. Well,
I mean,
enforcement.
The amount of baiting that happens in the state of Pennsylvania during deer season is astronomical, and like it's never been legal ever. People will cheat, but I think that you could put some things back in the box. I don't think that it will please everybody, but for the long-term vision of it, it would be better for deer hunting.
Yeah, absolutely.
I hope, I really hope things improve instead of, where this conversation is feels antiquated 10 years from now. I really hope that is the case. And I know there's people that are putting effort to try to improve the resource and not just, say something on a podcast. Like there's people that are boots on the ground doing things. Like I was in the Iowa deer class this past weekend, and like Iowa, to me, they do such an exceptional
dude, they've been
job.
awesome.
Yeah, we were at that event last year with Taylor and Chris. And
at the Iowa Sportsman's Club.
Yeah.
Those guys kill it, man.
For those guys.
And Skip.
I wish everyone could mirror what those guys do.
So coordinated. I mean, dude, they walked into the legislative capitol when they were going to pass these bills that were going to be detrimental to everything, and just they snuffed them all out as an organized fashion, like just killed them. And it's like, why can't other states do that? Why can't we do that?
And I think the challenge is just think of how many people that that live in Iowa that moved there for whitetail hunting. Yeah. And it's a lot of those guys that are part of that organization. There's some born and raised Iowa guys too.
Sure.
But I don't know if you can create that culture in a different state. I hope you could. I really hope you could, but I don't know if that's achievable.
Yeah.
Hopefully someone can prove us wrong.
We always say we'd be the tip of the spear. Anytime like we've talked to state agencies, they're like, well, hey, like if we wanted to do this, like would you guys put us at the tip, man? We'll bust down the door. Like, if we support it, like we're not hiding from anyone.
Well, there's definitely factors that are unchangeable. Mainly like parcel size is a really, really challenging one.
Well, just the capitalism in general around selling land, leasing land, like we're a capitalist country. Like we can't.
Well, but what I'm
that.
saying in terms of like assimilating other states to Iowa.
Oh yeah, parcel size.
It's like you're not going to make parcel sizes bigger. Mm-mm. You're not going to
soils. You're not going to change soil types and stuff.
Yeah. Well, yes, but there's other states that have the same habitat potential or better.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So if I just look at the management stuff. What was the other one I was going to say?
Non-residents.
I mean, they don't have the crossbows either, which is a big deal. But I don't know if that is one that can go into that can be changed back.
The non-resident.
And frankly, I think it's overcomable. You know what I mean? I think the crossbow thing is what it is. Mm-hmm. I think
just another tool.
I think there's other better hills to die on probably, but
maybe. I mean, if it's truly just getting more hunter days afield, then it is an issue. Because at least as we sit right now with the access.
But not necessarily. That's where we've always talked about a better resource on the existing landscape. I'm like, maybe we don't need more property or less hunters. Maybe we just need more, a better deer experience on what we have and with who's already hunting it. And I think that's achievable with everything we've talked about, reducing the technology and stuff.
Sure. Yeah, no, I would agree.
Will it make it as good as Iowa? I don't know. But Iowa has just held out on all of these things the longest. So, we look back and we're like, oh, damn.
Yeah.
They're doing some things right.
Mm-hmm.
The model's there. It's we don't have to recreate how to improve a state. Like,
I know, dude. It's so frustrating. Like Jeremy and I, like obviously for every podcast that we have, there's 4 extra hours on a phone that's just like, we're like, dude, why can they not just get it? Like, why can Ohio not just be like, they seem like such simple things to change. And I realize, maybe they're not. There's all the bureaucracy and stuff to go through, like at that level. But it just like, it seems so simple to us. It's like, dude, just pull the plug.
It does, man.
Yeah.
Well, cool, Jake. Well, dude, we appreciate you coming on this morning and chatting with us. And it's fun, man. You get into these conversations and you just let it rip and you never know where it's going to go. But I think, we've always tried to, these discussions, I think, continue to be important regardless of what your viewpoints are and your stance are. Is like, it's debate and discussion, which is always healthy. And, I don't think that there's anybody, well, there are some people, anybody that thinks that there isn't an issue in the deer hunting community side right now is oblivious to what's going around. I mean, it's like Rome collapsing around us at this point, and so, and unfortunately, a lot of those people that I think that don't believe that they're an issue are the ones that are most vulnerable. They're the ones who are hunting on a permission piece or hunting public land or whatever it might be.
Frankly, dude, like, not to make it a political thing, but like much like is happening in the White House right now, like you need an adult in the room to stand up and be like, you guys are idiots. This is what we're going to do. Here's an executive order. This is going to fix this. And I'm not saying like everything that Trump is doing is that necessarily, but certainly we've made some turns, I think for the betterment here. You need something like that to happen probably in the whitetail space. I mean, you need an adult in the room to say like, listen, I understand what all you guys are saying. You want this, you want that, but do we all really want a place to go and a better experience and all this and that? So here you go. This is what has to happen.
And you'll never please everyone.
No, it's
impossible.
And you can't.
Yeah. Cool, dude. Well, before we let you go, you and I talked pre-podcast of that people might be able to see the channel and the podcast come back under a different name, though.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, super excited about that. Was able to buy back the Exodus podcast and the Exodus YouTube channel, and did that for a variety of reasons. And one of them is I enjoy these conversations so much and enjoy the content that we put out. So the Exodus YouTube channel will be called Whitetail, WHTL. Mm-hmm. And we're going to continue Whitetail Cribs. We're going to continue a lot of the content that really built that channel in the past. And it's coming back. And when we announced that we were going out of business, a really common comment was, I hope you guys keep doing the content. So we're going to keep doing it. And really, really excited and blessed that I had the opportunity to make that happen. So I'm super excited.
Awesome, man.
Is that just you?
It is. Yeah, I bought 100% of it.
Cool.
And, so there's an open invitation to anyone that was associated with Exodus to come on and jump on there. But I'm going to just keep doing the podcast, keep doing the Whitetail Cribs. And I think by not being associated with a brand too, there'll be more opportunities for guests on Whitetail Cribs than previously. So
yeah, that'd be cool.
I'm pretty pleased.
Right on, dude. Well, hopefully if we can help in any way, please let us know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, I appreciate that, guys. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Rack Hub.
Well, dude, sheds are starting to hit the ground.
Yeah, and although we usually don't find many of them, we've done pretty well this season so far.
I would say for just, a handful of walks, we've got a pile of sheds to show for it. So yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, if shed season would end today, I think it was pretty successful.
So this year we're partnering with Rack Hub. It's an antler mounting system for your sheds.
Yeah, and obviously people have watched our podcast. We've got this massive pile of sheds that are on the table at all times, but you guys took the time to set up Wide Boy Shed on the R1, which is a really cool way to now have that thing right off to my left-hand side during the podcast.
So some of these sheds just call for a little bit more appreciation, I guess. So rather than being on a pile on the table, we're going to mount them on the wall, and they look awesome. So
yeah. And so if anybody wants to try Rack Hub, you can use a code HUNTR10, HUNTR10 at rackhub.com to get 10% off your order.
Use Rack Hub to make the most of your shed season.
And awesome.
Yeah. Very cool.
Old Jakey.
Jakey is what we call him.
Old Jakey.
Yeah. Cool. It's cool to see him because we've seen so much from him over the years, in different, the Whitetail Cribs obviously has done really well, and everything he's been involved with, just a sharp dude,
Oh, dude. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I'm excited to see what's next for him.
Well, that's why when we talked this week and he was just joking, he's like, I haven't been pushing you guys. It's just, as things are developing, there's only certain things you can say as they're still in limbo, whether it's litigation and or confidential or whatever. And but it was perfect timing because when I talked to him this week, he was like, well, I am relaunching the YouTube and podcast. I bought them, which is awesome. Yeah. That dude put a ton of time into that, formulating that stuff. And, it's always been an awesome piece of content out there. So I worried when originally we had heard they might sell. I'm like, well, who's going to pick them up? I guess the Whitetail Cribs and stuff could have kept going because it wasn't necessarily a definitive host per se, but the podcast, you're not just gonna just swap us out,
right?
Just swap me out, swap you out.
Yeah, I mean, hey,
maybe it works. I don't know, but yeah, it didn't seem likely. So when he was like, yeah, I'm getting them back, so that's awesome. But yeah, man, it was cool discussions. It's funny. We end up down. It seems like we take a different rabbit hole and we pop out at the same place.
Well, it's like he and I talked briefly there afterwards as we're wrapping up. I'm like, dude, it's just almost like as much as you want to continue to have strategy conversations and all that, it's like without that conversation, I mean, we may not have the opportunity to do it. It really is the most important thing. So it's like,
absolutely,
it just makes sense that it lands there, and it's like, man, we'd like to see it. We'd like to see it course correct here.
Yeah, and like I said, and I'm not picking on people, but if you don't think that there's an issue out there, you're living under a rock, or you're just not invested enough to see the issue, and that makes sense. People,
or you're about to lose your spot to hunt.
Yeah, well, people will say it to me. They'll be like, I don't know, something with the federal government. You don't understand how this Department of Education thing's going to affect you, and I'm like, I don't. Because I'm not invested in it. I have no idea. My opinion might be is it going to? I thought the states manage, and they're like, you just don't understand where this fund, and I don't. And that's but I'm not trying to pretend that I do. Right? Yeah. Like, I don't know. So from a hunting side, if you're sitting there saying, well, like, there isn't an issue, like, you guys are the issue. That's what, like, literally, that is the argument.
I know.
I'm like, you don't know. And you are very adamant that you do. You have no idea. Just because you participate in the activity doesn't mean you understand what's happening.
I'm always intrigued by those. I mean, what is the guys have said that we're the problem? It's because of like the division argument. It's, hey,
yeah, I mean, we're never going to be united. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
It won't, for all the reasons that we just said. There's 100 guys.
They say, yeah, you should just be happy for people to hunt the way that they want to hunt.
Yeah, because it doesn't affect you. It does affect me.
It's interesting. What did you think of side tangent here? I sent you that Waddy video the other day of him,
which I don't know, because people always ask, are like, well, I know you work with Waddy. I don't know who he was ranting about.
I know. Well, and I'm curious because, and it's I certainly don't want to get lumped into a group of people that and I'm referring to that specific. So if you want to see it, it'll be out of context.
Elitist argument, right?
Well, or it seemed specific. It seemed like he is frustrated at, and I'm sure other people are too, frustrated at people for like poking fun at or belittling people on social media type of a thing about. And it seemed like specifically about turkey hunting.
Yeah, which seems crazy.
Yeah, like, well, that's how I know it wasn't us.
Well, because he said something about he made a comment about like somebody wearing fancy clothes. So that's Sitka, Kuyu, or First Light, right?
Sure.
One of those.
I don't know. Just happens. Just that's all it was. It was,
that they can't, like, if you don't call turkeys, great. I took it as maybe. So Michael has taken Theo and Caleb Presley out hunting. Yeah. I'm thinking it is like those guys don't know what they're doing, and Michael basically was like the guide. Like, he called them in, they killed the bird type of thing. Mm-hmm. That's what people were picking on, is like basically that Theo and Caleb shouldn't be hunting because they don't know what the hell they're doing out there.
Oh, interesting.
And because Michael's there as a world-class turkey caller and like doing the work for them, like that's not, he shouldn't be encouraging that, which is stupid. That's the dumbest. It's like, okay, then no dad should ever teach their kid to hunt. Shut your mouth. Like, it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Right. Well, and it is, and I just wanted to, like, I guess, be intentional about teasing apart. Like, there's a difference between bashing people on social media, which we absolutely are.
I hate.
Again, yeah.
Hate with a passion. I might not disagree, or I might not agree with how you hunt it or how that.
But we're not going to belittle you because of what you shoot. That's strong advocates against that.
Yeah.
But that is very different from addressing an issue with like legislation, like that whole conversation we had with Jake about identifying some issues and how they're affecting hunter access and all that. That's a very different thing, and I think in a lot of ways they get lumped together.
They do,
yeah,
because we're talking about the broader
people
issue.
Will hear that argument we just had and they'll say you should just support everybody for hunting the way that they want to hunt.
It's not possible. I wish I could. I wish everybody could hunt the way they want to hunt and that it didn't affect everybody else.
Well, it's just. You walk that conversation just a little bit further, and it's like, okay, it's legal to hunt with thermals and at night, and we do all that now.
And people will do it.
And you're going to bash me for hunting that way? Yeah, so that's where that argument just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It's like there's rules and regs in place for a reason. There has to be order, and that's what we're advocating for, and maybe even potentially to walk those back.
Yeah.
Not to bash the people for the way that they're doing it, even legally. If somebody is hunting legally with thermals and crossbows, whatever, that extremist situation becomes legal.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
well, I mean, I always to those guys.
You're gonna say you just need to support people for hunting.
If I have an argument, and it's the only way that I think we can, because I always try to figure out how are we going to find common ground here, because we're at odds with a lot of these things. I would say, okay, it's legal to kill that deer in a high fence. You support that? And they're like, fuck no. And I'm like, it's legal.
Who's who in this argument?
They're the person who says, just support me for the way I hunt. Like, don't worry about how I hunt.
Right.
It's legal. I should be able to do this. Don't not support it.
Would they say no? They would say no.
Absolutely would. They hate high fence hunting. They think it's trash.
Interesting.
But it's legal. You see, like, that's where I try to catch them at the point. It's like, we both disagree. We both agree that is not hunting per se. Right? But it's legal. So you can't have the argument that, like, don't worry about the way I hunt. Like, it's...
Yeah. I don't know. It's those fences are funny, man. It's almost like it segregates the conversation even. It's like, okay, but that's not hunting, so the rules don't apply.
But it's legal. People do it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you're right about one thing is like you're not going to make everybody happy, but it's like
nothing that has ever been done for the betterment of advancement has ever made everyone happy.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And change is uncomfortable, so.
Think everybody was comfortable with the American Revolution in 1776? They weren't. But guess what? It worked out.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it.
Not for everybody, but
yeah. Not for everybody. Yeah. For us. But like that is the, like, they just it's such a weird, I always I'm trying to find other things in it. And it's the unfortunate thing, man, is just society as a whole has lost trust in everything. It's like, if you don't think that there can be somebody that knows more than you for the betterment of hunting, like, what's the other analogies or relationships? It's like, okay, well, let's say, unfortunately, you have cancer and you go to an oncologist. Do you just not believe them? And the unfortunate fact is a lot of people think that doctors are just full of shit. And like, can you live your life just thinking that you can't trust anyone? Because that's where this is going. Is like, is there, and if that's the case, man, you're doomed.
It's tough.
You're doomed in life. Like, and I'm not saying that you should be gullible to trust people, right? We've learned that that's not the way to do it. But like, what are those? Like, you have to understand that there are people in the world that are smarter than you in certain things, and that they're going to make decisions that you disagree with. And that's okay. You can disagree with them, but to just constantly be like, well, they don't know what they're doing. It's like, no, they know more than you.
Well, it's, it's worth, there's knowing things and not knowing things, but then there's also an objective, like a direction. It's like, what do we, and who are we, who are the stakeholders? What do the stakeholders of deer and deer hunting?
Mm-hmm. But the problem is it's the non-stakeholders that are driving the decisions in deer hunting.
Well, no, I mean, they're still stakeholders. It's hunters are not the only stakeholder.
Yeah, it's the agriculture, it's the insurance, it's
right.
All of that is what. That's why I said we talk about Jake about, well, we still have to kill deer, because that is the prerogative of the state.
Right.
Kill as many deer as we need to kill. Period.
Right.
If you leave it to the insurance and the agriculture people, it's kill them all.
I do wonder.
Hope they're all dead.
I do wonder who, like, what is the role of, like, deciding the importance of wildlife? You know what I mean?
Well, there's usually a fish and wildlife committee.
Like, whose role is it to push back and say, like, listen, I know you guys want to agriculture and we want to drive cars and stuff, and that's all great.
It's the committee at the legislative level. There is an agriculture committee. Mm-hmm. There is also a fish and wildlife committee at that level, at the legislative level. Just like there's a budget committee, and just like there's a defense committee in the federal government. Like all of those things, those committees are the protections essentially to balance out the stakeholder structure.
Yeah. Well, it's a tough thing too, because it's like it's almost like not in the way of, but certainly is not ever going to be like a primary revenue generator over some other thing, some other use of that space. You know what I mean? It's like, if finances are the objective, then deer hunting eventually will go away, because there are things that will supersede it,
Yeah, saving money from car insurance, vehicle collisions, and more agriculture.
Just whatever. Yeah. Yeah. The long road is, there's a better use for the space, financially. But that's what I'm saying. Is like, there's got to be somebody advocating for just what it is.
It's the committees.
And the group of us that want it to, to persist. There's value there.
And most of those people that are part of the committee have a vested interest in that. They are outdoorsmen in their own right. That's why they said, I want to be on this committee, right? Just like at the federal level, it's the Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation. Like the Congressional Sportsmen's Caucus is the representatives and senators who are vested in hunting and fishing, so therefore they're on that protective layering.
Yeah.
That's how it is. I mean, we talk about people will go against the DNR, they'll go against the insurance company, they'll go against us internally of like, we're going to end this all. The agricultural community is the one that wants deer hunting dead. There's not a doubt in my mind. Big ag is much like big pharma. They do not want damage done to crops. They want to create crops that will grow in any condition, under any circumstances. That's why we've talked about the fertility of these deer and probably turkeys too. Like you're living under a rock if you don't think that is affecting the reproductive rates of wildlife by spraying all these chemicals on that stuff. It absolutely is. It's proven. Done deal. It's out there. Look it up. It's happening. And like none of the states are doing anything about it. And I think if fortunately, if you're in the Northeast and you're in the Southeast and you're in mountain ground and stuff, probably won't affect you that much. But when you're in big ag areas of Illinois, Iowa, Missouri, the heartland of deer hunting, you're in trouble. That's what's causing it, in my opinion. I mean, you factor that in with things like EHD and in certain states CWD. Yeah, it's having a factor. But the reason that the deer herd is declining is because it's not reproducing to offset the losses. It has nothing to do with hunter harvest or disease. That has everything to do with fertility and reproduction. So that's a project that I cannot believe that no state agency has picked up and run. Frankly, they should be ashamed of themselves. It's the fundamental foundation of a population success is how they reproduce.
Interesting.
And nobody's looking at it.
You said there's some papers or something?
Yeah, Eric Mitchell did the paper. That was when he was looking at
Eric, right?
Yep, that was when he was looking at the chemicals in the fawns and how that was affecting, and it was changing their reproductive organs.
You think he would come back on and talk about that?
Probably. He's at the Mississippi State Deer Lab now. Yeah, I think it's a huge problem, and Eric is the only person in the other researchers that have ever looked at it. But you want to talk about a lobbyist group with a lot of money? In those states, it's the farming community.
Sure.
It's selling for $30,000 an acre in land.
Yeah. Well, let's shoot to get him on here in the next couple of months or so.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good one. So, anyways, hope you listened. Hope you liked it. Episode 243 with Jake Hofer. Good luck to Jake. Looking forward to seeing his new content coming out on the podcast and on the YouTube channel. And we'll catch y'all next week.
Later.
Take me